man who can crush 16 nuclear bombs with his hands, simply lit a cigarette, and it scared an entire G family into full alert. Every move he makes could decide the fate of the entire United States. It makes the US president uneasy every single day. They even mobilized the entire nation to establish the largest intelligence agency. They've been working at the intelligence agency for 8 years. 400 people are responsible every day for monitoring the man's movements, until the man suddenly came ashore just now, shattering the previous calm. The entire US instantly went into a state of high alert. The man's name is Chen Noa. He is the apex predator of this underworld. It's just because, a few years ago, he stole 16 nuclear warheads from old me, and set a countdown timer. As long as he wants, the Americans will have to face God. This scared the Americans out of their wits, so they started negotiations with him. As long as he stays at sea and doesn't come ashore this year, they won't interfere with whatever he does. But now, just over 8 years later, he unexpectedly arrived on land. The Americans thought this Sea King had come ashore, either to surrender to them, or to send them to their next life. As soon as Chen Noa arrived, he was surrounded by a heavy force from all sides. At that moment, he casually chatted and laughed with the president. But the next second, Chen Noa's face darkened. He began to lay out his conditions. It turned out he had cancer and didn't have much time left. He wanted to secure a future for his subordinates. As long as the Americans didn't touch his people, in exchange, he would cancel the nuclear detonation countdown. But if they don't accept, what awaits them are mushroom clouds, rising all across America. Chen Noa thought that now, having explained everything, he could finally rest in peace. Before coming ashore, he had taken a slow-acting poison. Now, scattered across the world, beautiful subordinate works, is carrying out a mission. After Sniper Firefly eliminates the target, she hears the news of Chen Noa's death, and bursts into tears. It was Chen Noa who rescued them from a hellish abyss of despair. Rescued them. He was their only hope in the world. My only reason for living. A world without Chen Noa. There's no point in staying. Then, she pulled out a knife, and plunged it deep into her chest. She decided to follow him in this way. After receiving the news on the plane, the blonde woman was filled with endless sorrow. He muttered softly, "I've always wanted to see what hell looks like." Then, in her own way, she went down to join him. Finally, the female hacker, watching the news of her companion's departures, ended her own life without hesitation. They had vowed to be with him forever. But in the next second, he, who should have died, hazily heard the sound of reading. He opened his eyes, and found himself back 20 years ago, in an unfamiliar body, surrounded by unfamiliar classmates, and an unfamiliar environment. The questions on the blackboard awaited his answers, but he couldn't understand a single one. For Chen Noa, accustomed to fighting and killing, studying was the real hell. But it seemed he was alive again. He didn't expect to return as a teenager. In his past life, this man held a nuclear bomb in his left hand, right hand holding a Huazi cigarette. He's the big boss who terrifies even the US president. After his death, a group of beautiful female subordinates willingly followed him in death, and heaven gave him a chance to continue his past life. Now, he's just been reborn, and encountered a stunning school beauty. He pinned him down. Chen Noa returned to school once again, but opened his eyes to unfamiliar surroundings and strangers. At that moment, someone was jumping from the building above. It piqued his curiosity and he looked up. A girl with a ponytail was falling from the rooftop. In the nick of time, he dashed forward. I flashed beneath the girl, prepared to catch her, but I was a little too slow. But I used my body to catch the falling campus bell. I looked up and saw a beautiful girl, shyly looking at me from on top of me. The two of them came out of the infirmary. I was called to the principal's office. The school beauty sized up the boy who had saved her, wondering how she should thank him. Suddenly, the office door opened, followed by a cough. It was the principal. Principal's son asked them with concern, "Are you two all right?" After expressing his concern and greetings to Chen Noa, he turned around and scolded the girl. "How could you jump off the building?" The school belle lowered her head and replied, "Dad, I didn't jump off the building. I accidentally fell down." Chen Noa was stunned, looking at the two of them. The school belle was actually the director's daughter. The appearance of this father and daughter makes it feel like there's a story behind it. Just as they were thanking Chen Noa was about to open the door and leave. Suddenly, he remembered something. He turned around and said to the director, "Could you lend me 50 yuan? I'm feeling a bit dizzy. I can't ride a bike." Then, Chen Noa took out a form from his backpack, which had his home address on it. Following the address, he arrived downstairs, and finally found this unfamiliar home. After entering the house, Chen Noa spent the afternoon. "I figured out my current situation. This body's original owner is also named Chen Noa. His parents are in jail for debt. His only family, his grandmother, passed away last year. Chen Noa thinks this lone wolf persona will make things easier for him in the future." He suddenly noticed the calendar on the wall. It's the 25th. I can't help but think of a special day. I immediately ran to the internet cafe to check how to quickly travel from Jiangning to Han City. It was the day I met a tragic end. In my past life, I was powerless. But this time, I must rescue the girl from the den of evil. But now, using conventional methods is no longer enough to reach. To return home, he tried to tap into his superpowers. But now, his body is too weak to use the abilities from his past life. It seems he can only plan carefully for the long term. Meanwhile, the campus beauty. Listening to my MP3 player, I thought about what happened this morning. Speaking of which, her accidental fall. Actually, it had a lot to do with Chen Noa. In a high school with strict discipline, the boy hit on the school beauty. But her dad was the dean of students. Should he press on despite the difficulty or quit while he's ahead? Sun, the school beauty, sat by the window, listening to Kuen's latest single. I recalled the absurd things that happened yesterday. She was on the second-floor corridor outside the classroom, when she saw the boy on the first floor who had given her a love letter. For a moment, school beauty Sun suddenly felt that Chen Noa, in the sunlight, looked a little handsome. I was a little charmed by his looks. A slight blush crept onto my face. I leaned against the railing, gazing dreamily. I thought about leaning out further to get a better look. Suddenly, my hand slipped. And then there was the falling incident. As a result, everyone started talking about it. The school beauty jumped off the building. She fell onto the man who had written her a love letter. She blushed and thought to herself, "This is so awkward. Why did it have to be him?" But Sun, the school beauty, still felt a bit hopeful and pulled out the love letter she had secretly hidden among her homework. The next day, seeing the campus bell arrive, the students instantly went into spectator mode. She came to the door of Chen Noa's classroom. At this moment, our male lead was sitting in his seat, lost in thought. The arrival of the campus bell interrupted his thoughts. Chen Noa asked unhurriedly, "Is something wrong?" Facing his tone, Sun Xiaohua suddenly felt a bit nervous, but she still gathered up the courage, and shyly said, "The love letter you wrote to me a few days ago. I'm sorry, I can't accept it." Chen Noa thought to himself, this original host was really bold. He even dared to flirt with the dean's daughter. Sun, the school beauty, watched him, feeling irritated by his absent-mindedness. She deliberately raised her voice. "Look, I can't accept this. Please don't do anything like this again. We still have to prioritize our studies." Chen Noa simply said, Got it. If there's nothing else, you can leave. Wish you success in your studies." Sun Xiaohua didn't expect Chen Noa's reaction. It was unexpectedly calm. She walked out of the classroom, feeling somewhat dejected. "Why do I feel like I'm the one who got rejected?" Chen Noa then sat down, staring at the notebook on his desk. He had repeatedly written a name in it. Li Yingwan. This was the female subordinate Chen Noa needed to save. At this time, she was still a naive young girl. Now, with such a distance, how can I get over there? In his past life, this man held 16 nuclear warheads in his hand. He was fearless even when facing threats from the US president. Now, he's afraid of the math problems on the blackboard. He thought he'd go to hell after he died, but after being reborn, he discovered that the school before him is hell. Now, his beautiful subordinate from his past life. "I'll be suffering in 15 days. Even in this life, protective Chen Noa can't stand to see his own people suffer such grievances." While worrying about this, the teacher announced in class that on the 10th of next month, there will be an exchange competition in Yanbian. Chen Noa instantly looked up. He could sneak off to Seoul during this event. He immediately raised his hand and asked, "Teacher, can everyone sign up?" The math teacher was stunned for a moment, then looked at Chen Noa and asked, "You want to sign up?" The classmates in the class couldn't help but laugh, but facing everyone's mockery, Chen Noa could only remain silent. Reluctantly, he slept through the class until it ended. After waking up, he stretched a bit and was getting ready to go home when a few classmates hesitantly tried to invite him to the arcade. Chen Noa readily agreed. He was feeling pretty bored anyway. They went to the arcade. Chen Noa, who only knows how to wield swords and guns, is no match for this group of internet-addicted teenagers. After being thoroughly beaten, he lost all interest. Just as he was about to get up and leave, a hand suddenly slammed him back down. He turned his head and saw a man in a brown leather jacket, staring at him fiercely. "Come out. I need to talk to you." They dragged Chen Noa into a dead-end alley, and next to the thugs was the classmate who had invited him to play games. The group of punks had blocked the exit. The man had one of his lackeys light a cheap cigarette. He looked up and stared directly at Chen Noa. "I heard you wrote a love letter to my woman, Sun Kiki." Chen Noa imagined the scene. A cheesy drama of a thug and a school beauty. He then asked curiously, "She's your woman?" The thug pulled out a fruit knife and said, "She will be soon, so don't even think about her. Got it?" Seeing Chen Noa remaining silent, the thugs tried to move in on him. They really are swimming in a cesspool, not afraid to die. Then Chen Noa clenched his fists. "You guys really picked a good spot. Time to stretch my muscles while no one's around. This guy here, stealing a bike, on school grounds, is the man who once made even the US president tremble in fear. And this act just so happens to be witnessed by the school beauty, who has a bit of a crush on him." Chen Noa is completely oblivious at this moment, still concentrating on picking the lock. The campus beauty walked up and questioned him. What are you doing? Don't tell me you're trying to steal a bike to support me. Chen Noa turned around awkwardly. My viewers all say you're not good looking. I wouldn't want to get arrested because of you. I just forgot which bike is mine. The campus beauty turned to leave in anger, but Chen Noa suddenly called out to her. He slowly approached and said, actually, when you're not being fierce, you're quite cute. I know you're the principal's daughter, so you have to be a good girl at school, but you don't have to deliberately. Cold words, huh? The campus belle, seen through by the playboy, blushed and retorted. Mind your own business. Then, she deliberately changed the subject, pointing at the distant bicycle with its rusty basket, and half-missing bell, like the one my grandma would ride to the market. He said that's his. Chen Noa was a bit curious. She clearly isn't in the same class as Sun, the campus belle. How does she know so clearly where my bike is? She saw the campus belle avoid her gaze and respond. Is it not okay to just happen to know? Don't tell me you have a crush on me. Chen Noa then asked with interest. Do you remember Dao Go, that little thug at the school gate? Sun Kiki remembered. There was indeed such a person. That little hoodlum who always used to harass her at the school gate. Chen Noa said with a smile. That hoodlum won't be bothering her anymore. I took care of that problem for her. After all, I just taught him a lesson this afternoon. He won't be leaving the hospital for at least 6 months, maybe a year. He's probably stuck there for a while. And I didn't help her out for nothing. I want to ask her about the school competition. Is there any other way to participate? Even though I'm a terrible student, I really want to see the snow in Yanbian. Sun Kiki was a little curious. Instead of looking at a beauty like herself, he'd rather go to a crappy place like Yanbian to see snow. But she didn't want to refuse him. However, the quota really was full. Then I thought, why should I help him? Annoyed, the campus beauty Sun subconsciously bit her lip. Unbeknownst to her, this subtle movement almost gave Chen Noa a tent in his pants. Suddenly, a rumbling stomach broke the slightly awkward atmosphere. Then, Chen Noa said with a mournful face, I'm so broke I can't even afford to eat. Although Sun, the campus beauty, thought he was glib, she still felt sympathy for Chen Noa's family situation. She said if his life was truly difficult, she was willing to talk to her father about applying for a student grant for him. Hearing this, Chen Noa felt a warmth in his heart. He teased, you're so concerned about my affairs. Could it be that you like me? Sun Kiki blushed immediately, and hurriedly replied, don't be silly. I just heard it from my classmates. Then Chen Noa looked mischievously at the lunchbox in the campus belle's hands. My dear benefactor, why don't you help me out first? Sun Kiki clutched something tightly in her arms. This is my dad's dinner. But she couldn't resist Chen Noa's charming pleas. She then made an exception and gave him a chicken leg. Chen Noa gnawed on the large chicken leg, and rode his bicycle happily home. Meanwhile, her dad wondered, why is there no dish with my rice today? In my past life, I held 16 nuclear warheads, and was surrounded by countless beauties. Now, reborn, I've somehow attracted a pure school beauty to travel 3,000 kilometers, to chase after me. Yet, my heart belongs to another woman. Just now, I was trying to get to Yanbian. Chen Noa, with the exchange spot, arrived at the school administration office. Looking at the teacher before him, he already had his speech prepared. The teacher, upon seeing Chen Noa, asked coldly, Student, what can I do for you? Chen Noa then stated his purpose. I want to go to Yanbian for the competition. I heard there's also a spot for a student representative. But then the teacher rejected his request. That spot requires the homeroom teacher and the grade level director's signatures. And Chen Noa took out the envelope he had already prepared. He had investigated this teacher Lu's background. I'm just an outsourced worker, sent by the education company to the school, to handle trivial administrative tasks. Teacher Lu opened the envelope, and saw a like and subscribe card. His expression immediately changed to a smile. I almost forgot. The group still needs a few service volunteers. Chen Noa happily responded. No problem. I'm the most dedicated. Once his goal was achieved, he reverted to his usual expression of wanting no part in it. He went back to prepare the luggage needed for the trip. The next day, Chen Noa finally set off on his journey to Yanbian. Surprisingly, Sun, the campus beauty, also came to the station. It turns out she discovered yesterday that among the names on the list to Yanbian, Chen Noa's name appeared prominently. She thought he was joking about seeing the snow, but he actually went. She wondered if it was really to see the snow. It's still to chase after someone, Sun Kiki. She quickly found her father. She asked him to help her join the competition group to Yanbian. Director Sun never expected that his daughter suddenly wanted to go. But now, the spots are already full. She wouldn't go when asked before, but her daughter's coquettishness finally convinced the director to give her a spot in the choir. She kept looking around, searching for Chen Noa. Chen Noa was a little surprised to see Sun, the campus beauty. Why is this girl eagerly following him here? Then, getting into the car, I asked, why are you here too? Sun Coco replied haughtily, I want to see the snow too. What's it to you? After a tiring journey, we finally arrived at Yendian Station. Sun Coco dragged her heavy luggage. I couldn't find Chen Nua for a long time. I started complaining. Why did I even come here to suffer? Suddenly, Chen Nua walked out from behind me. He picked up my luggage. Then, he threw me a bottle of cola. Sun Kiki stood there a bit dazed. She watched Chen Nua walking ahead. At that moment, she felt that following this boy gave her an inexplicable sense of peace. Back at the hotel, Chen Nua asked the teacher in charge for 4 days off. As expected, Mr. Liu refused him. Then, he calmly took out his phone and played a recording of Mr. Liu accepting a bribe. He didn't expect Chen Nua to have this trick up his sleeve. This kid is incredibly cunning. He doesn't have the mentality of a high school student at all. The exasperated teacher Liu could only resort to pestering him. But whether it was threats or bribes, Chen Nua remained unmoved. Furious, teacher Liu wanted to resort to violence. But he picked the wrong person to mess with. Instead, I got beaten up by Chen Nua. Chen Nua squatted down and said to him, I'm not here to discuss this with you. I'm here to inform you. As for covering it up from the higher-ups, I believe you can do it. Seeing Chen Nua walk away nonchalantly, the teacher was on the verge of tears. 36 hours later, Chen Nua was alone, at the border between North and South Korea. This man, who in his past life controlled 16 nuclear warheads, discovered after his death that he had been reborn 20 years earlier, and he was going alone to the enemy's headquarters, to save the beautiful subordinate from his past life. Just now, Chen Nua arrived at the north-south border. Crossing this area would take him into South Korea. With a quick sidestep, he perfectly evaded the watchtower's surveillance. Then he waited patiently for the next blind spot in the searchlight sweep. Seeing his opportunity, he made a slick, evasive maneuver. After sprinting for several dozen meters, I made a final leap into the blind spot. But the next second, a pair of size 48 leather shoes came into view. I followed the line of sight and looked up to see a burly sentry standing before me. The soldier noticed him. He immediately tried to draw his gun from his waist, but Chen Nua wouldn't give him that chance. With a swift strike, he knocked the soldier out. At that moment, the sentry on the post thought it was just some chicken passing by. He didn't pay much attention, but Chen Nua had already, without anyone noticing, he quietly reached the barbed wire. He took out a pair of pliers. He snipped the wires one by one. His movements were unusually steady, like an experienced soldier. Then, he passed through the fence, and took a piece out of his bag, a Snickers to replenish some energy. Next, we'll be crossing a minefield ahead, full of dangers. The map of this minefield layout is in Chen Nua's mind. In his past life, he had carried out missions here more than once, unless something unexpected happens. 30 meters to go until we're out of the minefield. But people who say things like that usually end up having accidents. There was a click. He heard the faint sound of metal scraping. Under his knee was a 10-meter blast radius MZ anti-personnel mine. The fuse probe has been triggered. As long as he moves his knee away now, the grass on his grave next year will only be trimmed by the audience. At this moment, he pulls out a pair of scissors from his backpack and cuts a piece of fabric from his school uniform. He uses it to make a pressure pouch. Then Chen Nua holds his breath. He slowly folds the school uniform and tucks it under his knee. After doing all of this, he takes a pin from his bag. He carefully pins it at the edge of the fabric to secure it. Then, he takes out a mechanical pencil and removes the lead inside. The entire process is extremely delicate. He needs to use this pencil lead to reinsert it into the landmine safety pin, acting as a fuse probe. The surrounding temperature is minus 13 degrees Celsius, but beads of sweat on Chen Nua's forehead are dripping onto the frozen ground. Meanwhile, at the school's art performance, Sun, the school beauty, was on stage performing, casually glancing towards the audience. After looking around twice, she couldn't find Chen Nua. She wondered where that guy had run off to. Could he be off somewhere hitting on girls? This 18-year-old Gao Zhongqing single-handedly cleared mines, his skills surpassing even 10-year veterans. Chen Nua cut a piece of the school uniform and used it as a pressure pad. Then, she placed the fabric under his knee. She took a paperclip from her backpack and straightened it. Next, she inserted it into the ground to secure it. Then, she took a pencil lead and slowly inserted it into the safety pin. It acted as a fuse probe. With a click, the clang of metal reached Chen Nua's ears. He finally breathed a sigh of relief. Theoretically, the mine should be dormant again, but Chen Nua still had a failsafe. The pressure pouch made from his school uniform would keep the spring on the mine's casing compressed to prevent the mine from springing up and detonating. He held his breath and gently moved his knee. In the next second, like a bolt of lightning, he leaped to the side. Then, he covered his head with his hands and threw himself to the ground. After a moment, Chen Nuajing didn't hear the sound of an explosion. He slowly rose to his feet, rubbing his numb limbs. He quickly exited the minefield. He sprinted across the open field, staying low. 200 meters later, he jumped into a foxhole. Just as he thought he was finally safe, Two figures leaped in after him, two South Korean agents on a secret mission. They looked at each other and froze. One of the agents yelled "Cybele" and charged at Chen Noa. Chen Noa also lunged at him. The next moment, Chen Noa knocked the little thug over, and pulled a military dagger from his chest. He quickly flipped the dagger and threw it. Before the little thug could react, the blade had already reached his forehead. With a scream, he collapsed to the ground. Only the little stick, knocked over, remained. He drew out his military knife, and used Shen Teng's signature gesture to signal Chen Noa to come over. Chen Noa could not bear such humiliation. He pulled out the only item he had on him, a ballpoint pen, as a weapon and charged forward. In an instant, sparks flew. Both sides launched their strongest attacks. Soon after, tears of unwillingness appeared at the corner of Bangzi's eye. Gone to meet his maker. After his victory, Chen Noa struck a triumphant pose. But remember, don't get too cocky. He then chose an enemy of similar build, stripped him of his uniform, and put it on himself. He quickly disappeared into the night. On the streets of South Korea, Chen Noa walked out of a convenience store. He'd bought the cheap clothes he was wearing from a supermarket, and he'd also dyed his hair. He then hailed a taxi. Chen Noa got into the back seat, and said in a standard Jiangnan accent, "Up Gyujong." The car slowly drove off. He started to close his eyes and rest to recover his strength. In his past life, he accepted an assassination mission targeting a business tycoon. As Chen Noa fought his way through obstacles, and reached the target's bedroom, he pushed the door open, and saw a graceful woman, pointing a gun at the business tycoon's head. And this woman was Li Yingwan. With the bang of a gunshot, the bodyguards at the door were alerted. The next second, Chen Noa tied the woman up, and slung her over his shoulder as he retreated. But he was quickly surrounded by the bodyguards. However, our hero, with his agile movements, I skillfully dodged the bullets fired by the bodyguards, and fought my way out from the tight encirclement of more than 30 armed security personnel. Afterwards, I took Li Yingwan to a safe house, and tried to interrogate her for any valuable information. But Li Yingwan was thinking. The seductive woman tried to lure our soldier king, Chen Noa. She reached out, intending to touch Chen Noa's cheek, but the next second, she attempted to grab the gun at his waist. But this girl was no match for our soldier king. Immediately, Chen Noa struck once, knocking her out cold. When he opened his eyes again, he found himself tied up like a dumpling. Really impressive. I see. I have some people I need to kill. As long as it's BC, I'm willing to devote myself to you. Do anything for you. From that day on, Chen Noa taught her a lot. Taught her combat skills. He taught her marksmanship and long-range skills. 2 years later, the woman achieved her goal using everything Chen Noa had taught her. That day, the woman knelt on the ground holding a photo of her family, crying bitterly. She cried all night long, until she nearly passed out from exhaustion. When she woke up, Li Yingwan quietly returned to her room. I washed myself clean, changed into my pajamas, got under the covers, and obediently went to sleep. As Chen Noa was about to leave, I made a request. I hoped Chen Noa would watch me fall asleep. My tone was very serious at the time. I'm afraid that if I wake up and don't see you, I'll want to. And on that day, the woman told Chen Noa her story. It was the night of January 6, 2001. Li Yingwan spoke in a calm tone, as if she were talking about someone else's story. That night, it was very dark and the wind was strong. My brother had gotten into a fight at school and was being scolded by mom. I was sitting next to her, drinking the chicken soup she made. It smelled so good. Then, they broke down the door. They killed my father half a month ago. That day, my brother in front of me and MM. They did it right in front of me. They humiliated my mother. Then they brutally nailed her to the ground. Before she died, she tried to crawl over and take my hand. After that, they threw me into the yard, and they humiliated me, right next to the sunflowers my mother planted. It was very cold that day, even the sunflowers hung their heads, unwilling to look. The woman's tone was calm as she spoke. They didn't kill you. Li Yingwan shook her head. Maybe they just hadn't had enough fun yet. On the way back, I seized the chance and jumped into the river to escape. The river water was cold in the winter. I crawled ashore and found one of my father's friends for help. That very night, he and those thugs. And then what? Chen Noa wanted to skip this part. And then, for the 6 years before I met you, I lived in DY. This seemingly simple sentence, like an awl, pierced Chen Noa's heart. The girl continued, from today onwards, if you want me to live, I will live. If you want me to do something, I will do it. My world has long been shrouded in darkness. You are the light of my wi. No, Li Yingwan. If the whole world is darkness, then shine on your own. Don't place your hope for light in others. Everyone can shine on their own, even if the light is weak, even the faintest light. That night, Chen Nua looked into Li Yingwan's eyes. So, learn to shine on your own and light up your own way. I called you, Firefly. The car jolted. Destination reached. Chen Nua woke up from his memories. After getting out of the car, Chen Nua stopped in front of a photo studio. 16-year-old Li Yingwan, in a gray down jacket, was there. The cold wind blew, her delicate face flushed from the cold. Chen Nua smiled in the cold wind. Hello there, Firefly. This schoolboy in uniform crossed minefields, snuck past guard posts, and battled special agents, traveling 6,000 li, just to help the girl dispel the approaching nightmare. 16-year-old Li Yingwan was right there, her face slightly flushed in the cold wind. A drunk man stumbled past, nearly knocking the girl over. The girl's eyes widened. She blurted out, Aish. Before she could finish, her ear was pinched. Chen Nua pinched the girl's ear, and said gently, such a young girl, you shouldn't swear. Li Yingwan was stunned for a second, before she whined coquettishly, ah, who are you? Chen Nua released his hand and smiled in the cold wind. Hello, Firefly. Firefly? Li Yingwan asked, puzzled. What are you talking about? Who are you? Me. Chen Nua's hand passed through the girl's hair, and helped her put on the hood of her down jacket. Then he gently patted her little head, before continuing, it's someone who fell from the sky, just to help you drive away a nightmare. Li Yingwan, who was in her rebellious phase, snapped out of her trance slightly. Without hesitation, she raised her foot and kicked fiercely at the man in front of her. The kick missed, and the woman turned and ran. Shouting, there's a BT, she ran toward a nearby patrol officer. She said something to the officer, then turned around and pointed to the original location. But the 170 street had already lost sight of the boy. Evening. South Korea, NIS, National Intelligence Service. Photographs on the office desk and Chen Nua's items at the YL border. Last night at the border, 2 personnel carrying out an infiltration mission accidentally died. Everything that could be gathered from the scene is here, about 300 meters north of the crime scene, in a landmine area. We also found an M2 landmine that had been defused using special methods. A middle-aged supervisor in a black suit, standing sternly at the table. I stare at my elite subordinates. The data packets have been distributed to you. Gentlemen, this is a military infiltration incident targeting our Great Southern MG. The northern enemy has drawn their blades. To protect the safety of Great Southern MG, the Blue House has issued an order, demanding we spare no expense. Find the northern spies who have infiltrated. Loyalty. As the word fell, the room full of intelligence elites rose and shouted in unison. Loyalty. Meanwhile, north of the border, at a border command post, a thin field grade officer, glaring fiercely at everyone. The American imperialists running dogs from the south have infiltrated. I order you, from this moment on, to raise patrol levels to wartime status. Conduct a carpet search of the entire defense zone. Find these infiltrating enemies. We cannot let their conspiracy succeed. The officer paused briefly, then angrily demanded to know who was responsible for patrolling the area where the incident occurred. The officer beside him was about to answer. The field grade officer gave the order, his face expressionless. Shoot him. Seen as an American lapdog by both North and South, and a lone wolf agent for the CIA, Chen Nua was concealed by the night. As he crouched on a rooftop, feeling the breeze, he took out a chocolate bar from his backpack, and popped it into his mouth to replenish his energy and warmth. Chen Nua, annoyed that he hadn't brought any water, suddenly smelled a delicious aroma. Chicken soup. He peered through the window from under the eaves. A young man was kneeling on the floor, while a beautiful woman scolded him harshly. At the table, Li Yingwan was sipping chicken soup, occasionally making faces at the young man. Watching this blissful scene, Chen Nua's eyes softened. Just then, the screech of brakes alerted him. Several cars intentionally slowed down and stopped in front of FD. After the cars stopped, some men in black suits got out, walking towards FD with W and Q. Chen Nua's gentle eyes instantly turned sharp. It's starting. The nightmare I couldn't save you from in the last life. This time, I'm here. Little Firefly, do you believe in the light? Bang, bang, bang. Knocked more than 10 times. The door with a security chain finally opened. Through the gap in the door, Lou, the worker, forced a calm expression as he looked at Sun, the campus beauty. Oh, it's you, Cuckoo. What brings you here so late? Sun tried to peer into the room through the crack in the door, but Lou blocked her view completely. I haven't seen Chen Nua for 2 days. This doesn't feel right. Lou pretended to yawn. I'm looking for Chen Nua. The campus belle, Sun, mustered her courage. Mr. Lou, I need to see him. But they're all asleep, aren't they? Working stiff. Lou softened a bit. I can't let anyone find out a student has left the group. Sun gave him a suspicious look. What's going on with Chen Nuo? At this moment, Lu, the worker, pressed the phone hidden behind his back. Hello, Director Sun. Hello, what's the matter? As he spoke, he deliberately glanced at Director Sun. The young woman's face instantly turned pale. Director Sun, just so happens your daughter Lu, the worker intentionally slowed his speech. Campus belle Sun jolted, quickly waving her hands. She mouthed silently, don't tell my dad I was here. Having said that, she clasped her hands together pleadingly. Finally, she turned and ran off. Director Sun, you say. Lu, the worker, put down his phone. There was obviously no call on the phone. He closed the door. Tears streaming down his face, Lu, the worker, collapsed onto the ground. What is all this? It's just too much. A group of people in black clothes crashed through the FD's door and barged in. There was a loud bang. When the door was smashed open, the three people in the house were all stunned. Li Yingwan's brother, DY, blocked the stranger's path, but was knocked to the ground with a kick. The three leading men walked into the FD, surrounded by their subordinates. The mistress's scream, the boys' roar, and the girl's shriek, all came from the room one after another. Chen Nuo didn't move for the time being. Like a gecko, he clung to the outer wall. He quietly watched from the window. Chen Nuo recognized the man in front of him. His name was He Zhengzai. He was the wealthy businessman who had been shot in the head. When he first met Li Yingwan in the previous life, the two men behind him were brothers. The older brother, Che Taiyong, and the younger brother, Che Jingshuan. These three were the masterminds behind the Li family's MMC case. Ha Zhongjae and Li Yongwan's father started a shipping business together years ago. By the year 2000, their shipping business had grown considerably. Since Li Yongwan's father held a larger share, he became the chairman. Ha Zhongjae served as the president. That year, Cha Taeyong and Cha Kyung-hoon, brothers involved in gold dealing, drug trafficking, and organ trafficking. He took a liking to Li Yongwan's father's shipping routes. So, Ha Yongjae was brought in on the deal. But then he was rejected by Li Yongwan's father. Last month, his body was dumped into the ocean. Ha Yongjae's older brother tried to attack him, but was slapped to the ground. The madam was scolding him loudly, and RZ's Jingshu and Che forcefully yanked Li Yingwan up and slammed her onto the table. Watching the girl's face turn pale with pain, Chen Nuo only furrowed his brows. He stayed by the window, unmoving. He glanced at the clock on the wall, calculating the time in his mind. Seeing Jingshu and Che's disgusting smile appear, his tongue was about to lick Li Yingwan's face. Chen Nuo couldn't help but press his fingers against the glass. Just then, the urgent wail of a siren came from the distance. The flashing lights were prominent in the night. If one day you were trapped in a nightmare you couldn't wake from, would there be someone who, like light, would help you dispel it? The urgent wail of a siren came from afar. Chen Nuo's hand, pressed against the window, slowly relaxed. Cha Kyung-hoon let go of Li Yongwan, and pushed the window open, sticking his head out to look around. It's the fire truck. A subordinate reported. Cha Taeyong said angrily, we can't do anything here. Take them all back. Chen Nuo was on the roof, watching several men in black. A family of three was forcibly dragged out of their house, and shoved into a black van. It then sped away into the night. Chen Nuo was the one who called the fire department. He snuck into the vacant apartment next door, and used a lighter to heat the fire alarm sensor. The sensor was triggered, and the fire trucks arrived as expected, although a little later than he had anticipated. Right after the thug's car drove off, Chen Nuo flipped off the roof and ran into CK, started his car, and chased after them. So far, everything is going according to plan. Chen Nuo believes Li Yingwan's father has likely been killed. Now, he needs to save them. He wants to change Li Yingwan's tragic life. Actually, killing these bastards would be easy. But we can't act against the Li family. Otherwise, there will be a dozen more corpses at home. That would only bring trouble to the widows and orphans. Chen Nuo drove and followed closely. At this moment, He Zhengzai felt his heart pounding fiercely. A few days ago, when he used a hammer to kill Li Dongha, Li Yingwan's father, he didn't feel as panicked as he did now. That was a brother he had struggled with for 20 years since childhood. When I smashed him to death with a hammer, blow by blow, I could feel the exhilarating release of pent-up frustration. Ever since our second business disagreement, he treated me like a dog, scolding me until I was demoralized. He also took advantage of my lack of financial knowledge, to seize more shares. And then, there was that woman. I met her first, but he stole her from me, and they even spawned two little bastards. Taeyong Cha offered Zhang Jae-ha a cigarette. He lit it and said with a smile, still not satisfied, soon, you can do whatever you want with her. Zhang Jae-ha took several harsh drags from the cigarette. He revealed a snake-like cold smile. Not only will I torture his wife, I'll savor his daughter as well. I'll make them wish they were dead. Li Dongha, that HD, is just a failure. An abandoned factory on the outskirts of Seoul. The Li Yingwan family of three were pushed to the ground. The mother tightly shielded her children behind her. I begged Ha Young-jae over and over again. Ha Young-jae didn't listen to a single word. He picked up a leather whip and looked down at the three of us. He suddenly raised the whip, and lashed out at us fiercely. My mother turned her back, trying to shield her children with her own body. Blood seeped from her back. This whip only heightened the mother's protective instinct. She held her child even tighter. She wanted to protect them in her embrace. And she loudly cursed, "Damn you, He Zhengzai." The boy, filled with rage, charged at He Zhengzai. He grabbed his waist, trying to topple him, but was sadly thrown off by a punch from He Zhengzai. His subordinates also swarmed in, beating the boy with fists and kicks. Li Yingwan's mind went completely blank. She was completely terrified. Her eyes were filled with tears and terror. At that moment, she only wished it was all a dream, praying to wake up from it. For a moment, the image of that strange boy flashed through her mind. Who was he? What did he say? Right, he said he wanted to dispel the nightmare for himself. Boom! A huge roar. The doors of the warehouse suddenly burst open. A silver Audi crashed in like a maniac, until it slammed into a black car. Everyone in the warehouse instinctively covered their heads, to avoid the noise or the impact of the collision. Li Yingwan opened her eyes and saw the car rushing towards her. Her expression suddenly became strange. That's my family's car. A young man pushed open the door and got out. The dust floating around made him cough. This car's clutch is a bit loose. The steering wheel also pulls a bit. It might need recalibrating. Chen Nua spoke frankly and fearlessly. He finished speaking and his gaze fell on the girl's face. Li Yingwan's expression was dazed, but her wide eyes were full of anticipation. A smile appeared on Chen Nua's face. We meet again, little firefly. A rescue spanning 6,000 li. Liming will dispel. The girl finally saw her own dawn. Li Yingwan's wide eyes were full of anticipation. Ignoring the crowd surrounding him, Chen Nua softly said to the girl, "We meet again, little firefly." Like the first ray of sunlight shining into the cold night, Li Yingwan hoped this light would bring her warmth, breaking through the darkness and dispelling the nightmares. It's really him. Who are you? The sudden change startled Cha Kyung-hoon. Cha Tae-yong pushed his brother aside. The gang boss, decisive and ruthless, ordered his men to take him out. Freckles, who was closest to Chen Nuoi, raised a nail-studded club and swung it at the back of the boy's head. Chen Nuoi, calm and collected, dodged the blow. He lifted his leg and bent his knee, then drove his knee into the side of the newcomer's neck with lightning speed. A crisp cracking sound. The man's cervical vertebrae were broken instantly. Freckles fell straight to the ground. Blood oozed from his mouth and nose. He was no longer breathing. Chen Nua's ruthlessness shocked everyone present. He plunged everyone into a brief silence. Che Taeyong, his face full of murderous intent, roused the FL gang. "Let's go, kill him." The little brothers yelled all kinds of foul language and charged forward. About 10 seconds later, everyone was already lying on the ground. The WQ backpack in his hand was soaked in blood, yet the young man was unharmed. He turned and mockingly looked at Che Taeyong in the distance. And Che Taeyong was like a snake that had just been stared at. My mouth suddenly went dry. Ha Young-jae started backing away slowly, looking like he wanted to escape. Kyung-hoon, kill him. Cha Tae-yong glanced at his younger brother. Ha Young-jae chimed in, trying to bolster his own courage. His younger brother, Cha Kyung-hoon, was his ultimate trump card. He's the one who can fight among everyone. Che Taeyong rose in the underworld in just a few years. A skilled and fearless younger brother. His contributions are undeniable. Che Jingxuan had once served in an elite unit on the southern Goryeo border. At this moment, although he was secretly shocked, he was not afraid. He stared at the young man in front of him and slowly bent down, tightened the shoelaces. Then, draw a ZD from the gaiters. Flicked the blade. Assumed a standard tactical posture with both hands. Slowly approached Chen Nua. Chen Nua furrowed his brow. He gave a warning glance at Che Jingxuan, sighed and said, "You are the first person since I came to this world to dare draw a blade against me. Do you know what happened to the last one?" Che Jingxuan remained silent, raising both hands, chest out, shoulders tensed. Suddenly, he executed a tactical slide step to close the distance. He raised his knife and attacked. Even in the most elite forces, this set of tactical moves is flawless. The sharp blade struck out like a venomous snake's fang, but Chen Nua tilted his head. The blade cuts across the side of the neck. The edge of the blade sweeps towards the chest. He sidesteps to avoid it. Che Jingxuan follows up with a sweeping kick. Chen Nua retreats. The car door next to him is directly kicked inward. Che Jingxuan fights fiercely. He relentlessly closes in, and Chen Nua dodges left and right, retreating several steps. Suddenly, he lets out a cold laugh. It's his turn to strike. In an instant, he doesn't retreat but advances. The body shot forward like lightning. Chen Nua's movements could no longer be described as fast. It even gave the illusion of space-time distortion. Unbelievable. Facing Che Jingxuan, who was stabbing with a knife, the young man blocked the blade with his left hand. His right hand had already swiftly slashed across Che Jingxuan's neck. In an instant, the two of them passed each other. But Che Jingshuan had already lost the ability to make the next move. Suddenly, a line of blood appeared on his throat. Then blood gushed out. A blade flashed on Chen Noa's finger. He glanced back at Che Kyung-hoon. Show off. Rescue, spanning 6,000 miles, arrived just in time. Don't be afraid, I told you I would dispel the nightmare for you. In an instant, the two passed each other. Che Jingshuan no longer made a move. Looking at the fallen Che Jingshuan, Chen Noa concealed the sharp edge of the blade on his finger. All flash and flare. Masters of Z7 decide the outcome in an instant. No matter how beautiful the swordplay is, killing the opponent is the ultimate goal. Hyo Youngjae saw his general had already been taken out. Knowing the situation was bad, he quickly turned and sprinted towards the factory gate. But the young man wouldn't let him get away so easily. He grabbed his backpack from the ground, and swung it with all his might at He Zhengzai. Trying to run, that door isn't for you to leave. He Zhengzai's head was hit by Chen Noa's backpack. Ha Youngjae fell flat on the ground. Cha Taeyong's eyes widened, because he saw inside the scattered backpack 3 or 4 bricks. He finally understood why, with just one bag, Ha Youngjae and everyone else were knocked down. What are you looking at? These were meant for you. Chen Noa stared back nonchalantly, seeing everyone dead. Cha Taeyong knew he had no escape. Suddenly, he spotted the trembling Lee Youngwon. He lunged at the girl frantically, pressing his knife against her neck. His trembling hand already drew blood. Near hysterical, Cha Taeyong clung to this last straw. He yelled at Chen Noa, I don't care who you are. If you want to save this girl, then let me go. Chen Noa frowned, looking at Lee Ingwan, who was being held hostage by Che Taeyong. Hey, kid, are you scared? Chen Noa scratched his head. He suddenly smiled at the trembling girl and said, don't be afraid. The words seemed to possess a magical power. Although the girl's eyes were still filled with tears, she slowly stopped trembling. The girl looked at the boy in front of her with a special look, one of deep trust. Chen Noa shrugged and looked at Cha Taeyong. I didn't want to use this move originally. My body hasn't fully adapted yet, but I'll use it on you to practice for now. Looking at the BS in Che Taeyong's hand, Chen Noa suddenly raised his right hand, and snapped his fingers. Snap! The boy seemed to have lost all his strength. His face instantly paled. The space seemed to thicken, each step becoming more solidified. Chen Noa, with a cold smile, walked step by step towards Che Taeyong. Che Taeyong's whole body trembled, his face flushed, the muscles in his arms twisted, but no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't move an inch. The BS in my hand couldn't make a move. Fear filled Che Taeyong. This is impossible, why can't I move? My body is restrained by the air around me. This must be a nightmare. Chen Noa slowly walked in front of Che Taeyong. He looked directly into Che Taeyong's eyes. You're the third person in this life to draw a knife on me. Take it, he said. The young man snatched the BS from Cha Taeyong's hand. He pulled the girl into his arms with his left hand, shielding her from what was about to happen. His right hand reversed the BS, and plunged it into Cha Taeyong's chest. Chen Noa pushed the now lifeless Cha Taeyong to the ground. He looked at the girl in front of him and slowly exhaled. He reached out and caressed Li Yingwan's face, wiping away her tears. He whispered, don't be afraid. I told you I would chase away your nightmares. This young man had crossed mountains and rivers, and finally, before the nightmare deepened, rescued the sorrowful girl. Little did he know this would be the beginning of a deep attachment. 2 hours later, at the Li residence, when Li Yingwan woke up, she found herself lying on the sofa. Her first reaction was to sit up and look around. It was her familiar room, her familiar sofa. The clothes covering her slipped to the floor. There was a large tear in them. There was a large tear in them. Awake? Chen Noa's voice came. Li Yingwan suddenly looked up, and saw the young man standing in front of her. He leaned lazily against the wall, using his bowl and chopsticks, to quickly drink the chicken soup. He didn't forget to remind Li Yingwan that the clothes she was wearing were his. When you were unconscious, I was afraid you'd catch a cold, so I covered you with it. You were clutching it tightly, so you could get some rest. I had to leave it on you. Saying this, Chen Noa reached out to take back his tattered school uniform. The girl curled up into a ball, looking pathetic. She looked at the young man with eyes. Her hands clutched tightly at a corner of the uniform, as if afraid it would disappear if she let go. Chen Noa smiled wryly in resignation. He had no choice but to announce the ownership of the clothes to the girl once again. Li Yingwan lowered her head. She carefully examined the clothes for a while. Her small face flushed slightly. In the end, she reluctantly let go. Chen Noa pulled the clothes back. He casually scrunched them up and shoved them into the corner of his backpack. I heated up some soup. It tastes pretty good. Your brother was injured a bit. Your mother has already medicated him. Chen Noa sat in front of Li Yingwan. The girl's eyes were filled with helplessness and bewilderment. He took a deep breath, trying to make his tone gentler. Before you woke up, I already explained everything to your mother. She'll tell you the details later. I suggest you don't call the police. Anyway, the trouble has already been resolved. Chen Noa looked at the familiar yet youthful face in front of him. He instinctively reached out, wanting to caress the girl's face. But halfway through, his hand hesitated and stopped. Li Yingwan's eyes revealed a strange expression. The girl adopted a slightly awkward posture. I leaned forward and took the young man's hand, placing my cheek against his palm. This action startled Chen Noa. Before he could pull his hand back, Li Yingwan timidly asked, "Why do you speak so seriously, like an old man? You look about the same age as me." Instead of answering directly, Chen Noa asked, "Weren't you scared, Yingwan? Those scenes. Actually, if I'd had more time, I could have handled it better. I didn't want you to face those things. Don't be afraid." After saying this, Li Yingwan was silent for a moment. "You told me not to be afraid, so I'm not afraid." The girl stared at Chen Noa. She couldn't help but ask, "Can you tell me, who are you? What exactly happened tonight? Are you really from the sky?" This made Chen Noa laugh heartily. He shook his head, gently stroking the girl's hair. "You're just a child. Don't ask so many questions. Your mother will tell you the details." "Oh right. Your mother was a little agitated, so I took some measures. She's sleeping now. She probably won't wake up for about an hour. As for your brother, he's too hot-tempered, so I tied him up." Speaking of which, Chen Noa suddenly turned serious. His fingers slid down from the girl's beautiful hair. He gently pinched her ear. He scolded her. "You need to remember to study hard in the future. You can't use bad language, and you mustn't get a tattoo. Little V, you're too young for that. It's so ugly. You can't smoke or drink either. Did you remember what I just said?" Li Yingwan nodded gently. A sweet voice repeated Chen Noa's request. After a pause, her tone was almost pleading. "Can you tell me your name? Will we meet again?" The boy who took away the girl's heart, the charming young man of parting. Li Yingwan nodded gently. Xi Jinping pleaded. "Can you tell me your name?" He tapped the girl's forehead lightly with his index finger. "Why do you ask so many questions, little one?" With that, Chen Noa stood up. Li Yingwan immediately became anxious. "Are you leaving?" "Yeah. Otherwise, are you planning to stay here for the new year?" Chen Noa smiled. He walked into the kitchen behind the living room, pulling along the largest suitcase. Li Yingwan looked up at Chen Noa, her eyes slightly red. "Tell me, are you even human? You can't be an angel, right?" Chen Noa looked at him with disdain. "Angel? I don't believe in God. I believe in Brother Guan." At that moment, the large suitcase on the floor started vibrating. Chen Noa kicked it up and shouted sternly, "What's moving? If you move again, I'll hit you with a brick." Li Yingwan was a little startled. She asked softly, "What's inside?" "Pa Yongjae," Chen Noa answered. "He's still of some use to me." With that, he turned to leave, but noticed Li Yingwan's small hand tightly gripping his sleeve. "Will I see you again?" The young girl's heart had found something to cling to. Chen Noa looked at the undisguised attachment in the young girl's eyes, and softly asked, "Do you like fireflies?" "I do. My brother took me to catch them in the summer," the young girl reminisced softly. "Don't catch them anymore." The young girl wanted to say something more, but she felt Chen Noa's hand gently caress her neck. Then, her vision blurred. "Don't go." Li Yingwan woke up with a start. She looked at the empty living room, her eyes dim. He really left. The next second, she remembered something. Suddenly, she jumped off the sofa and ran towards the study. The young woman was unusually serious. I wrote line after line on it. No cursing, no tattoos, no smoking, no drinking. And no catching fireflies. Writing this, the girl frowned and thought, what else? Then, with an ah, she clapped her hands. She continued writing on the paper. Believe in Brother Guan. But who is second Brother Guan? Just then, Li Yingwan's eyes suddenly lit up. She leaned over the table and wrote furiously, drawing a few strokes. Then she thought for a moment and added a few more. A moment later, on the lower half of the paper, she had scribbled and twisted out a series of character-like patterns. These were drawn by Li Yingwan, based on her memory. This pattern is from when she woke up last time, and carefully observed a string of characters on the blue sports hoodie. Although she couldn't understand it, Li Yingwan still relied on her memory to force herself to remember the shape of those characters. At this moment, the lower half of the paper in front of the girl clearly shows Jiangning number 8 middle school. I don't understand it, but this seems to be Chinese. I remember my brother's room has a Chinese dictionary. Ah, brother. That person said he tied up his older brother. Li Yingwan then remembered her poor family. The rescue across 6,000 li was finally complete. It not only averted a tragedy, but also stole the girl's heart. Although she couldn't read it, Li Yingwan relied on her memory, and painstakingly drew the characters for Jiangning number 8 middle school. This looks like Chinese. I remember there was a Chinese dictionary in my brother's room. She turns and runs to the study, finding the Chinese dictionary. I feel like I've forgotten something. Never mind, it's probably not important. Li Yingwan finally finds information on Jiangning in the dictionary. Located in Jinling City, but she doesn't know her poor brother. I'm still hanging outside the study window. I want to cry, but I have no tears. Don't worry, viewers, he's my brother after all. Hanging a little longer won't hurt him. Chen Noa opened the box and looked at Ha Young-jae inside. His whole body was trembling and contorting. Ha Young-jae is quite small in stature. Even so, to fit him into this largest suitcase, Chen Noa didn't hesitate to break one of his arms. Only then could he barely squeeze him in. Chen Noa knew he'd fainted from the pain at least twice. Once while being crammed in, and once when the suitcase was being carried in the Lee family's living room. Served him right. Ha Zhengzai looked up and saw the terrifying boy, falling into deep despair. He also recognized his current location. It was one of his secret hideouts, and this sent a chill down Ha Young-jae's spine, because this place was known to very few. Who are you? Ha Young-jae gritted his teeth and hissed. The young man didn't answer. He grabbed fake Ha Young-jae's ankle, bring the box, and drag it from the living room to the bedroom. I skillfully moved the nightstand, revealing the safe inside. Let's make a deal. You open it. The young man looked at Ha Young-jae playfully. Ha Young-jae felt like he'd grasped at a lifeline. Will you let me go? I can let you die with a little dignity. It seems the boy isn't going to let him go. Dignity? Ha Young-jae was stunned, not understanding. You can choose from your wardrobe the most presentable clothes you have and change into them. Then die. Chen Noa's tone was sincere, smiling as he looked at Ha Young-jae. See? Isn't this dignified? Ha Young-jae, enduring the intense pain of his dislocated arm, rolled over, on the ground, and slammed his head against the floor. He cried out loud, begging the young man to spare him. He offered all his wealth in exchange for his life. Chen Noa let Ha Young-jae cry and shout without interrupting. He had checked before coming. For miles around, there wasn't a soul, not even a dog. It doesn't matter if someone hears Ha Young-jae's screams. Looking at Ha Young-jae, who was still kowtowing, Chen Noa pointed at the safe. He was smiling, but his eyes were icy. Open it. But remembering the boy's cruel killing methods, and how he had previously broken his own arm, Ha Young-jae couldn't muster even the slightest resistance. He handed over the password, opened the safe. Inside was an account book, which recorded. Hyo Jong-jae still wanted to reveal his leverage, but stopped halfway. He realized the young man showed no interest at all in this account book, which contained countless high-level dirty deals. He casually tossed it aside. You know, any single piece of information in here is worth more than the cash in the safe. Ha Young-jae didn't understand. Chen Noa really wasn't interested in Ha Young-jae's dirty dealings and transactions, but he still took the US dollar cash from the safe, along with a few gold bars, and stuffed them into his backpack. He was just here to pick up some easy money on the way. Even reborn people need to eat. The 6,000-mile rescue was finally complete. Not only was a tragedy averted, but the boy was also happily collecting his spoils. He's just here to pick up some easy money. Even reborn people need to eat. So he threw away the ledger, and focused on collecting the cash from the safe. Of course, he didn't forget to stuff those gold bars into his backpack as well. Chen Noa packed up the money. He glanced around, carefully checking for any traces of YL. Well then, it's time to deal with this disgusting guy. As Chen Noa was thinking, his peripheral vision caught a photo frame above the safe. He Zhengzai in the picture frame, standing next to a medium-sized red private yacht, with a smug and annoying expression. Chen Noa smiled, then quickly grabbed He Zhengzai's hair, pointing at the photo. Is this your boat? How fast is it? CG. Chen Noa quickly calculated the time it would take to go directly back to Yanbian from here. Smiling brightly, then, let's make a deal. I want this ship. Ha Young-jae also plucked up his courage. Then you'll let me go. Trade it for my life. You can't kill me. I won't kill you, Chen Noa readily agreed. Where's the ship? At sea. Chen Noa sailed the ship, singing a song, in a cheerful mood. Ha Young-jae is dead. Chen Noa didn't kill him. He drowned. Chen Noa just forced him to drink 2 bottles of strong whiskey. Then he kindly let him swim back. As for whether a drunk person could swim back to shore, the yacht was at least 10 kilometers from the coastline. Chen Noa optimistically believed it wasn't possible. Besides, to prevent him from being swept away by the waves, thoughtfully chained a cement bucket to that guy's feet with a steel chain. It weighs about 50 kilograms. Guarantees he won't be washed away. As for the promise not to kill him, Chen Noa shrugged. I didn't lay a hand on him. He drowned himself. My fault. By the way, there's another chain on the cement bucket. He was tying up another person. The person's name is Han Jingyuan. He was a good friend of Li Yingwan's father before he passed away. That is, in the previous life. After Li Yingwan escaped, she had nowhere to go and sought refuge with him. What happened after that is referred to as DY by the Fireflies. That's the guy. Catching him would just be a matter of stepping on the gas a little harder. So I didn't mention it to everyone earlier. Han Jingyuan clearly had no idea what was happening. He kept asking the boy and begging for mercy. Chen Noa couldn't be bothered to explain. After all, that was something from his past life. He just told him to go swim in the sea with Yijingjai, and even reminded him, if the king of hell is in a good mood, maybe he'll explain it to you. I almost forgot, I am the king of hell. Do you want me to pull it up and explain again? Forget it, they're already far away. Sitting in the cockpit, Chen-Nua turned on the navigation instrument. He checked the nautical chart and the direction control. He set the autopilot, and the yacht gradually accelerated. In the morning sunlight, the sound of a young boy's joyful singing came from the yacht. Moments later, Chen-Nua noticed he was having a nosebleed. He sighed quietly. As expected, you can't use your trump card recklessly. He had forcibly used his ability to save Li Yingwan. The after effects have kicked in. Chen-Nua casually wiped the blood from his nose. He would just train harder in the future. Keep swaying to the yacht's rhythm of the music. Look up at the clear blue sky. Smile for a moment. Give the sky the middle finger. This man was once the #1 enemy of Western countries. Every move he made affected countless countries and organizations. Now, he is about to be punished by a school teacher. L with WJ is going to punish him. Lu Jing is now facing the biggest crisis of his life. Hiding in the men's room, smoking, he was on pins and needles, about to pull his hair out. After 4 days of bluffing, the truth finally came out. Sun Kiki discovered that Chen-Nua had been missing for 4 whole days. It wasn't just Sun Kiki. Just an hour ago, in the auditorium of Yanbian School, Principal Fong, the team leader, also noticed something was wrong. This was the last meeting of the Yutsai School exchange program. According to the rules, all members of the delegation must be present, no matter whether they are teachers or students. Any absence will result in strict penalties. However, there is always one seat left empty here at Jiangning No. 8 Middle School. Team leader, Principal Fong, finally noticed that one student was missing. This time, it was all because of that little brat, Chen-Nua. Lu, the worker, tossed away his last cigarette. Although he regretted it, it was already too late. I looked up and saw a pair of shiny leather shoes. It was Principal Fong. This Principal Fong, like most leaders of this era, had slick back hair and wore a jacket. He had quite an imposing presence. And you was sent from the Education Bureau to the school for a temporary position to gain experience. I'll leave after the school restructuring. After a successful restructuring, I'll have achieved a pretty good political achievement, but that's assuming nothing goes wrong. You can imagine how angry Principal Fong was. He glared at Lu, practically wanting to swallow him whole. Principal Fong berated Lu for over 10 minutes, then roared, and made the teachers from the exchange group go out and look for him. Lu, the worker, didn't dare tell them that Chen-Nua had been missing from the group for 4 days. So, in a panic, he insisted that Chen-Nua was just being a typical teenager, and had probably gone to an internet cafe to play games. But now, after 2 hours of searching, the teachers from Yutsai School and Sun Kiki, who had joined the search, we've searched all the nearby arcades and internet cafes, all the places he might be. Still no sign of Chen-Nua. The class beauty, Sun, couldn't help but suggest, "Teacher, a student is missing. We should call the police." This time, Principal Fong, the team leader, was truly scared. He didn't agree immediately. Worried about gains and losses, sweating profusely. Principal Fong is the leader of the exchange group. If anything happens in the group, he's the one ultimately responsible. Then all that talk about honorary positions, gaining credentials, and political achievements would be ruined, including his own future. If the police are called, things will get really out of hand. Even if the police find the student, they'll still blame us for poor management. Sun Xiaohua is young, she doesn't understand these intricacies. Seeing that no one spoke up, she anxiously said, "Teacher, Chen-Nua is missing. What are you waiting for? Call the police. What if something happens to him?" Principal Fong was breathing heavily. His eyes were filled with anxiety. He hoped even more to cover this up. It would be best if he could find the person himself. He turned his head slightly, feeling guilty, and whispered, "Let's keep looking. Maybe there's still somewhere we haven't searched." Listening to this, Sun Kiki naturally didn't understand, but the teachers were all adults. They guessed that Principal Fong was now in a difficult position. No one spoke up. At this moment, Principal Fong suddenly thought of something. Maybe Chen-Nua has relatives in the area. Could he have sneaked out? Principal Fong muttered to himself. His eyes suddenly lit up, and he asked Lu. "Right, Lu Wang, you've been living with him. Did he ever mention having any local relatives or friends? Maybe he went to visit some relatives. I'm not sure." Lu, the worker, looks pale. Principal Fong glares fiercely at Lu, the worker. "What about his luggage?" "It's probably in the room. Go check quickly. Look for any contact address or communication details in the suitcase." Although the hope is slim, Principal Fong finally had a lead. Yanbian Convenient Hotel. Principal Fong hurried with the group to Lu Degongren and Chen-Nua's room. Holding the key, Degongren's hands trembled like a sieve. Principal Fong urged him on. "Hurry up." Degongren, resigned to his fate knowing he was going to get it either way, was about to open the door. The door was pushed open from the inside. Seeing who it was, Lu Degongren went from shocked disbelief to the joy of surviving a disaster. He immediately burst into tears. Sun Xiaohua also quickly screamed and covered her eyes. It was Chen Nua who came out. The young man was shirtless, only a towel wrapped around him. My hair and body are all wet. I look like I just took a shower. What? The young man looked at the teachers crowding the doorway, a look of surprise and nervousness on his face. Having single-handedly dealt with the gang, the young man returned to the exchange school. Unsurprisingly, what awaited him was a reprimand. This left the all-powerful young man in a difficult position. Chen Nua gasped. He turned, slammed the door, and ran back to his room. Principal Fong turned to Lu. This is Chen Nua, right? Lu knew that if he answered negatively, Principal Fong would tear him to shreds on the spot. Yes, that's definitely Chen Nua. Chen Nua, what the hell are you doing? Inside the room, Principal Fong raged at the now-dressed Chen Nua. Lu Degongren sat on the sofa nearby. At this moment, Lu Degongren wanted to kill that HD Chen Nua. But now, he mostly felt schadenfreude. Chen Nua, where did you run off to? I went to the internet cafe to play games for a while. Chen Nua scratched his head innocently. Damn it, this is outrageous. No organization, no discipline. Do you have any sense of organization and discipline? Principal Fong's anxious heart finally settled down, and he began to vent his anger. Chen Nua immediately stood at attention, lowering his head and assuming an obedient posture. What kind of punishment or self-criticism? Chen Nua will gladly accept it, but the corner of her eye subtly warns Lu, the worker. Lu, the worker, sees Chen Nua's look. His heart skips a beat. He quickly chimes in. Yeah, Chen Nua, you were indeed wrong. You should properly accept Principal Fong's criticism. Then, he quickly changes the topic. Principal Fong, look, we found Chen Nua. Leave the disciplining to me. The social event is about to start. We can't do without you there. Principal Fong has calmed down considerably. As long as the student is safe, it's not a big deal. He crossed his arms and concluded. Alright, I have things to attend to. Give me your self-criticism essay tomorrow. He then turned and left. Lu Degongren, standing beside him, didn't forget to continue. Don't worry, Principal Fong. I'll definitely discipline that student properly. You go ahead. I'll tidy up here and be right with you. As soon as the door closed, Chen Nua completely dropped his previously obedient and receptive act. Directly to the worker. Lao Lu, you're quite reasonable. You're easy to deal with. This time, you really screwed me over. Lu, the worker, gritted his teeth. To calm him down, Chen Nua deleted the recording on his phone right in front of him, and promised not to threaten the worker again. Everyone will get along peacefully from now on. As for whether Lu, the worker, believes it, Chen Nua won't care. Evening. On the 5th floor of Yindian Convenient Hotel, Chen Nua knocked on Sun Xiaohua's door. The one who opened the door was a girl with a round face. She looked warily at the young man outside. Is it Chen Nua? What are you doing? Where's Sun Kiki? The young man's expression was amiable. She's taking a shower. Are you looking for her? The chubby girl's gossip senses immediately ignited. Chen Nua peeked into the dorm room behind the chubby girl. He could faintly hear the sound of running water from inside. The young man's mind instantly began to race. A beautiful image of the school beauty bathing slowly appears. The author knows everyone wants to see this. So, I added holy light, and released it. You all know what to do. Who knows, you might not be able to see it later. A love-struck young girl was invited to the rooftop to meet a young man. Besides the snowy scenery, what else awaits her? Chen Nua peeked into the dorm room behind the chubby girl. The faint sound of rushing water could be heard from inside. The young man's mind instantly began to wander, slowly conjuring up an image of the school beauty bathing. Chen Nua didn't dare to think anymore. He turned to the gossiping chubby girl and said, "Tell her I'll be waiting for her on the rooftop." Night. The hotel rooftop. Sun, the school beauty, arrived wrapped in a pink coat. I don't know if it's because of shyness, or because the bath water was too hot, but her face was flushed, pushing open the door to the rooftop. Sun, the school beauty, saw the boy's back. Just as she hesitated shyly, unsure whether to greet him, Chen Nua turned around and gave her a slight smile. Look, it's snowing. In the night sky, scattered snowflakes gently fall. Sun Heek looks up at the falling snow. A soft sound is heard. Chen Nua hands over a can of open cola. Sun Xiaohua hesitates for a moment, then walks over. But she says, I'll gain weight if I drink it at night. The boy's wandering gaze landed just below the school beauty's collarbone. It's better to be a bit chubby. The boy smiled awkwardly. The girl really wanted to kick him. She blushed and took a sip of her cola. It was sweet. You know, I'm in a really good mood today. Chen Nua squinted and smiled. Why? The girl smiled and asked the boy. Maybe. Chen Nua raised his hand, catching the falling snow. Sun, the school beauty, felt her heart suddenly race. She turned her head to look at Chen Nua's profile, thinking to herself, could he be talking about watching the snow with me right now? I used to hear people say, life is always full of regrets, beautiful yet complicated. The young man muttered softly, suddenly changing his tone. He raised his hand towards the sky and shouted loudly, "To hell with regrets. Life, between heaven and earth, is like a fleeting horse. It passes by in an instant. Just like that. Life is like a wild horse. I am my own rider. No regrets." Bai Nu stared dreamily at the boy beside her, although she couldn't quite understand what Chen Noa was saying. At this moment, she suddenly thought he was so handsome. The handsome boy turned his head and looked at Sun, the school beauty, with a slightly mischievous look. "Kiki, can you promise me something?" "Yes, tell me." The girl was a little flustered. She gripped her cola tightly. Her breathing quickened. She thought, he wouldn't be about to ask me for something outrageous, would he? At most, at the very most, I'll let him hold my hand. Kissing is absolutely out of the question. Ah, but if he absolutely insists on a kiss, then I suppose a kiss on the cheek is barely acceptable, but I definitely can't say it. The young man continued, can you write a self-criticism letter? Can you write one for me? Huh? The school beauty thought, this jerk suddenly isn't handsome anymore. This man, who once held the fate of many great nations in his hands, today can only succumb to the homeroom teachers, can't be helped. A real man knows when to yield and when to stand firm. Who told me her father is the principal? Jiangning No. 8 Middle School. It was already covered in a blanket of white. This heavy snow fell from the north to the south. A cold wave swept across most of China. Affected by the southward moving cold air, the Jiangling area will continue to experience heavy snowfall today. Citizens, please take precautions to stay warm and pay attention to travel safety. Inside the Dean of Students' office, the weather report on the radio couldn't distract Director Sun from his thoughts. The exchange group had returned to Jiangning from Yanbian. What exactly was going on between his daughter, Sun Kiki, and that student Chen Noa? The day before, at Jiangling railway station, Sun Kiki jumped off the train, and was caught safely by Chen Noa, who had disembarked first. Binu suddenly felt the air turn sweet. A cough interrupted the romantic atmosphere between them. Director Sun had come to pick up his daughter. Thinking about this, Director Sun couldn't help but wonder if his daughter was dating. Unwilling to sit idly by, Director Sun picked up his thermos, and decided to take the initiative. He had already made plans. Class SSS first class this morning was with their homeroom teacher, Teacher E. As the bell rang, the teacher walked into the classroom. They saw the Dean of Students standing at the podium. The students started murmuring amongst themselves. Why is Director Sun here? Did someone do something seriously wrong? I heard a rumor, I wonder if it's true. Director Sun, on the podium, didn't speak. The judicial officers wisely stopped their discussion. The classroom instantly fell silent. Chen Noa, who had been dozing on his desk, sensed something was off. He raised his head. Whoa! Chen Yanwan, who was caught red-handed yesterday, Noa, also flinched. A guilty conscience. Director Sun on the podium glanced at Chen Noa, barely noticeable. Students, let me make an announcement. Your homeroom teacher, Mr. Wu, slipped and injured his leg because of the snow yesterday. So, for the time being, I will be substituting for him. She then shifted her gaze to the class below. The students in the class were too scared to react. It seems Old Sun holds quite a bit of sway over the students. Satisfied with the atmosphere, Old Sun continued. I'll also be acting as your homeroom teacher. With a slap, he placed a stack of papers on the desk and said slowly, to better understand everyone's learning situation, I've prepared a pop quiz. Everyone, do your best. Old Sun pushed up his glasses on the bridge of his nose. Anyone who fails the test will stay after school to sweep the snow on the playground. A wail went up from the classroom. Chen Noa also noticed that when Old Sun said the last sentence, his eyes were fixed on him. Was it an illusion? He felt targeted. Sure, Chen Noa was kept after school by Zhao Shui. He failed the pop quiz. Having not looked at a book since his rebirth, it would be a miracle if he passed. Chen Noa sighed. A man's intuition is truly never wrong. When did I offend Old Sun? Clearly, the boy lacked self-awareness. Chen Noa. A sweet voice appeared along with its owner. It's Sun Kiki. Chen Noa, you're thirsty, right? Let me help you. I'll hand you the thermos. Iron Man. Here, but then said, why did you steal Old Sun's thermos? What she didn't know was that Director Sun was standing nearby, biting his teeth in frustration. The man who was once the strongest on earth, but the head teacher mistook him for a poor child. After Old Sun took over as the class teacher, Chen Noa shoveled snow for 4 consecutive days. On the first day, he failed the pop quiz. It would have been a miracle if he passed, since he never studied. On the second day, Chen Noa passed. But Old Sun discovered he had copied his desk mate's answers. On the third day, there was no pop quiz. But Old Sun hasn't collected the homework. He has Chen Noa clean the snow again as punishment. On the fourth day, there's no exam today, no homework check. We'll do a random check on current affairs questions. When was the 15th National Congress held? Old Sun points to the class monitor. The class monitor stands up, from September 12th to 18th, 1997. Old Sun nods. How many delegates attended? He points to the class representative. The class monitor answered, 2,074 people. Old Sun pointed at Chen Nua, the names of these representatives. Chen Nua was speechless. Are you deliberately making things difficult for me? So Chen Nua spent the entire day sweeping snow on the sports field. Okay. Actually, Chen Nua wasn't wronged at all. Because on the first day, Old Sun just wanted to intimidate Chen Nua. But who knew that while Chen Nua was shoveling snow, Sun Xiaohua would come and shovel with him, and even offer him her large thermos to drink hot water. Old Dao, watching from the third-floor window, nearly ground his teeth to dust. On the fifth day, Old Sun called Chen Nua out of the classroom. Chen Nua let out a long sigh. He consciously grabbed the broom and came out. This time, Old Sun wasn't happy. What's the point of carrying a broom to class? I'm just on standby, you know. Chen Nua was speechless. Wasn't this asking the obvious? But Old Sun didn't look amused. He said seriously, if you're not sweeping snow today, put the broom down. Come to my office for a moment. He arrived at the headmaster's office. He looked at the other person in the office. Chen Nua frowned slightly. The person was wearing a full set of JF. You must be Chen Nua, right? Yes, that's me. Is there something wrong? Chen Nua answered calmly, then looked at Old Sun. Old Sun quickly made an introduction. Chen Nua. This is Instructor Zhang from Longtan Prison. Instructor Zhang briefly explained the purpose. It's like this. Your mother, Oh Xiaohua, is currently undergoing rehabilitation in our prison. She applied for a family visit last year due to her good behavior. The request has been approved. Instructor Zhang glanced at the young person in front of him and continued. But for some unknown reason, the visitation request was approved 6 months ago. You haven't visited the prison yet. Chen Nua nodded. He didn't remember this matter. It clearly happened before his rebirth. Zhang Jiadao whispered, your mother has been in a very bad mood lately, so she asked us to come talk to you. She misses you very much. Don't you really want to see her? Old Sun next to him looked somewhat sentimental, and had a faint worry in his heart. This child, I guess he still resents his mother. He came over and patted Instructor Zhang on the shoulder. Instructor Zhang, he's my student. Let me talk to him. Why don't you go back first? Instructor Zhang's tone softened. He said slowly, generally speaking, family visits are beneficial to a prisoner's rehabilitation. It's best if the child goes to see him. Before he could finish, Old Sun stepped between Chen Nua and Instructor Zhang. He looked at Instructor Zhang and said firmly, don't say any more. He's still a child, after all. Saying too much will put pressure on him. I'm his teacher. I'll talk to him slowly. Instructor Zhang, you go back first. I'll contact you by phone if anything comes up. Lao Sun's action surprised Chen Nua a little. Instructor Zhang hesitated slightly, but I still nodded in agreement. Alright then, I'll trouble you. After saying this, I shook hands with Old Sun and left. Old Sun watched Instructor Zhang walk away before closing the door. He glanced at the silent boy beside him. He assumed the boy had a hard life. He turned and went back inside. He sat down next to Chen Nua. Frankly, I learned something about your family situation from Instructor Zhang. I didn't expect it to be this difficult. Old Sun tried his best to soften his tone. You are a very smart child. The prison authorities are just here to understand the situation. The final decision rests with you. Don't feel burdened. If you have any difficulties, feel free to talk to me. He glanced at his watch. It's getting late. There probably isn't anyone at home to cook for you. He looked kindly at the boy. Come on, let's go back to my place for dinner. The boy, who had no food, was kindly taken home by the teacher to eat. Is this letting a wolf into the house? Old Sun's home is in the staff dormitory at the school, just behind the school. It was one of those old apartment blocks, back in 2001. It was actually pretty nice. At that moment, only Miss Sun, the school beauty, was home. When Old Sun opened the door with his key, the girl was sitting cross-legged on the sofa, gnawing on an ear of corn, watching TV. Sun Kiki was only wearing a thin cotton undershirt, which perfectly outlined her youthful, vibrant figure. Hearing the door open, she greeted her dad. She lazily turned her head, but saw Chen Nua behind her father. She froze for a second, then shrieked and jumped up from the sofa, dropping her corn on the cob. I scurried back to my room. Chen Nua recalled how Sun, the campus beauty, ate corn like a hamster. And that cotton thermal undershirt was really form-fitting. Those curves. His gaze followed Sun all the way to her room. So cute. Sun Kiki, having lost a shoe in her haste, sat with her legs tucked up behind her door. Her thoughts were a jumble. Why would Chen Nua come to her house? And he saw my awful table manners. And the clothes I was wearing. It made the campus belle blush. Old Sun glared at me and patted my shoulder. Change your shoes. Then go sit in the living room and do your homework. Looking at this increasingly irritating brat, Old Sun suddenly had some regrets. Does this count as the werewolf room? At this moment, Sun Xiaohua came out of the room. She had already put on a jade-colored coat. She was also wearing a pair of fluffy cotton slippers. Director Sun glanced at Kiki and then at Chen Nua. He wondered if Kiki's skirt was a bit too short. Sun Xiaohua carefully glanced at her father. Then her gaze remained fixed on Chen Nuo. Old Sun put down his briefcase and said casually, "I brought him back for dinner." He then looked up at the two who were staring at each other, and suddenly burst out, "Both of you, get back to your homework. Chen Nuo, you do your homework on the dining room table. Kiki, you're writing in the living room. No whispering." At the dining table, Chen Nuo is writing furiously. Sun Xiaohua is naturally distracted. She occasionally steals glances at Chen Nuo. The girl is also quite surprised. This guy, who is usually so unserious, is actually pretending to be serious and doing his homework. Is he afraid of his father? He can't be. Chen Nuo quietly signaled to Sun Kiki, then had the note he wrote crumpled up, and threw it accurately from the dining room onto the table in the girl's living room. Sun Kiki was also stunned. Of course, she happily opened the note. "Let N be dad, he's a good guy." And tired feeling, my girlish heart blossomed. I immediately started imagining, does this mean he approves of my dad? Lao Sun is a really good guy. Right now, he's sitting on the living room sofa, with a cup of tea, and a newspaper. Even though he's holding the newspaper, his eyes are all over their little interactions. The boy actually tried to stay at home. Dad's son saw right through it. After dinner, he was directly sent out the door. The two of them did homework until 6:30. Not sure how much homework was done, but there were a lot of notes passed. At this moment, Sun Kiki received a new note. After reading it, she couldn't help but burst out laughing. The note clearly reads, "NB something's wrong. 1. Night, the sound of rain, the flowers. A newspaper has already been read for 2 hours. 2. Peach blossom pool. Electricity, drifting NB, do you have a hobby of keeping up with the news? Accumulating and filling in." The girl's body, rising and falling as she tries to hold back a laugh, is quite cute. Old Sun feels a bit upset, squeezing the newspaper in his hand, thinking to himself, this little HD has thrown 32 notes at Kiki. Kiki has secretly glanced at that brat 57 times. Does he really think I'm invisible? After a moment's thought, Lao Sun abruptly called out to Sun Kiki, who was still giggling. The girl froze, then turned to look at her father with a pitiful expression. Lao Sun, a doting father, immediately softened. He murmured, "It's already 6:30. Damn it, Mom's probably working overtime. I'll go buy some prepared food and cold dishes for dinner." He then put on his jacket and shoes and left. I looked back at the door, and made up my mind. From now on, I won't let that little punk Chen Nuo set foot in my house again. My daughter wouldn't even talk to her dad. She only had eyes for that little HD. Sun's dad is jealous. 15 minutes later, Old Sun returned with salted duck, braised pig's head, and some cooked fish. This meal, Chen Nuo ate with great relish, because when the meal started, Old Sun, with his first chopsticks, put a duck leg in Chen Nuo's bowl. The shocked expressions on Old Sun and Ji's faces only lasted a second, because Miss Sun also picked up a duck wing, and was about to put it in Chen Nuo's bowl. Old Sun's eyes were practically bulging out of his head. Sun, the campus beauty, gave a sweet smile. Her chopsticks, holding a duck wing, made a circle in the air, and finally landed it in Old Sun's bowl. "Dad, you eat. That's more like it. How could you give food to the brat, and not to your dad?" A moment later, Chen Nuo had already finished 2 large bowls of rice. Old Sun, worried it was getting late, and the road would be difficult, subtly hinted that he should leave, meaning, after the meal, he could go home. The young man clearly didn't catch the hint. "It's fine, I'm used to walking at night." He then, without missing a beat, asked Kiki for another bowl. Sun Kiki, blushing, took his bowl. She seemed quite happy to play the role of a young wife. This really made Old Sun quite jealous. Usually, his little princess is the one who serves me food. He stood up and immediately kicked Chen Nuo, the glutton, out. Sun Kiki didn't have time to stop her jealous father. The young man had already been driven out and locked outside the door. Chen Nuo could only smile and shake his head, preparing to leave. Just as he turned the corner, he bumped into a lady. She looked to be around 30 years old. She's wearing light makeup. Very light, but clearly applied with care. She's wearing a women's short trench coat. That style is this year's most popular. Chen Nuo could tell at a glance that the newcomer was the campus belle's mother. They look so much alike. The campus belle's facial features. She mostly inherited it from her mother. Delicate and petite. The only exception is those almond-shaped eyes. Miss Sun's mother's eyes slant upwards a bit more at the corners. They appear a little seductive. This man was once among the world's top fighters, a legendary figure. Now, all he wants is to lie flat and be a salted fish. Chen Nuo was about to head home, when he bumped into a woman, who looked to be around 30. She wore light makeup, but it was clearly applied with care. With just a glance, Chen Nuo recognized her. The woman was Sun, the campus beauty's mother. They looked so much alike. Sun Xiaohua's facial features are largely inherited from her mother, delicate and petite. The only exception is those almond-shaped eyes. A woman's eyes, with the outer corners tilted upwards, are more charming. They passed each other. The young man's eyebrows furrowed slightly. Is that the smell of cigarettes? No, to be precise, it's the smell of cigars. I've smoked all kinds of cigars in my life. I can clearly distinguish that the lingering smell on Coco's mom is that of cigars. In 2001, cigar smokers were rare in mainland China, and it's unlikely someone of Lao Sun's ordinary social standing would have access to them. As I walked out of the building, the man stuck his cigar out the car window. The car slowly drove away. Chen Noa keenly noticed. The boy turned and looked at the lights in the apartments upstairs. The Sun family lived on the 5th floor. He could just make out the light in their living room window. Chen Noa's eyebrows furrowed slightly. He thought for a moment, then gave the lit window another meaningful look. Clear the distracting thoughts from your mind. In the night, with hands in pockets, walking slowly. Monday morning, Chen Noa, not wearing a school uniform, was sent back by the duty officer. Wearing a school uniform is impossible. After strolling around the street next to the school, Chen Noa found an internet cafe and lazily walked in. I started up the computer, threw school to the back of my mind, and holed up in the cramped, smoky internet cafe. Cigarette dangling from my lips, I was completely engrossed in the game, when suddenly, a large hand reached out from behind me, and completely covered my hand on the mouse. I sighed. He turned back to look at Lao Sun's youthful, round face. Why did you skip school? Lao Sun's expression was serious. Chen Noa noticed that Lao Sun was slightly out of breath. He glanced up at the time. It was almost noon. Lao Sun probably skipped class and came looking for him. He must have searched a lot of places. Chen Noa said nothing, pulling a cigarette from his pocket. He offered it. Comrade Lao Sunday, don't look so stern. Have a huazi. I bet there aren't many left. Lao Sun looked at the young man in front of him, somewhat speechless. Where did you learn such slang? But he still took the cigarette. He sat down in the next seat. Chen Noa took the opportunity to light a cigarette for Lao Sun. He gave him the cigarette but didn't light it. A pointless gesture. On Lao Sun's square face, there was a look of exasperation. Lao Sun confiscated the lighter and cigarette from Chen Noa's hand. He stared at Chen Noa for a moment and then said, "You, at such a young age, don't try to act cool, and end up looking like one of those little pimples." Old Sun sighed. Wait a few more years until you grow up, and look back. You'll realize how laughable and childish this is. Chen Noa didn't say anything, rubbed his hands, and pretended to listen attentively. I decided not to fight him head-on. Old Sun exhaled a puff of smoke and continued. At your age, you're in your rebellious phase. Your family situation is complicated, and you have a strong personality. You don't like interacting with people. I understand all of that, but Chen Noa, have you ever thought about your future? Chen Noa slumped over the computer desk, her chin resting in her hand. The future? Old Sun sighed. You're so young, and you're already wasting your life. What are you going to do in the future? Are you just going to mess around in society? Chen Noa didn't speak, just looked at Old Sun. Old Sun shook his head. Kids like you, I've seen too many in my life. Always shy with strangers, eccentric, thinking you're so cool. Childish. I don't want to see you become a good-for-nothing. If you end up like that, it would break my heart. Chen Noa looked at the person who truly cared about him. He laughed and said, Old Sun, you're mistaken. I'm not the kind of problem student you think I am. It's different. I just want to be a salted fish. Old Sun was caught off guard by this. Salted fish. If you had plenty of time and a lot of spare money, wouldn't you also choose to be a salted fish who just lies flat? Old Sun was choked by these words. Salted fish. Chen Noa stretched. I actually quite enjoy these boring days. Peaceful, free. No one bothers me, and there's nothing I particularly need to worry about. Eating my fill every day, basking in the winter sun and watching the snow, occasionally teasing your daughter. At this point, Old Sun's eyes flashed sharply. Alright, I'm just kidding. Chen Noa smiled, then said sincerely, Old Sun, you're a good man. He's a good teacher too, but don't worry about me. I'm not someone who'll go astray. I really just want to be idle. I just want to be bored and idle. You have to think about the future. How will you support yourself? Old Sun won't give up on a young man like you so easily. Chen Noa thought about the several tens of thousands of dollars in gold bars he had at home. If he were to squeeze a bit more money out of them, he could buy dozens of apartments in the city center. In 10 or 20 years, with the rising property prices, he could just lie around collecting rent like a landlord. So he really didn't have any motivation to work hard. Seeing Chen Noa remain silent, Old Sun sighed and took an envelope out of his pocket and handed it to Chen Noa. I spent the last 2 days working hard to find this for you. This is the letter of introduction. I've already negotiated the working hours and salary for you. You can go without worry. Chen Noa took the envelope with interest. Old Sun continued. Save your money over these next 2 years and don't spend it recklessly. That's almost enough for your college tuition. You can work part-time to earn your living expenses in college. It might be a bit tough, but your future will be much better than being a street punk. Old Sun seemed to remember something painful as he spoke. He lowered his voice and said, "Take my advice, don't mess around." Chen Noa at this moment, I'm genuinely touched. 20 years later, good people like you are practically extinct. Lao Sun, has anyone ever told you you're too naive? Chen Noa said slowly. Lao Sun's expression was complicated. He waved his hand, and before leaving, he said earnestly, "You'll get annoyed if I keep nagging. Think about what I said. I have class this afternoon, I'm leaving now." Watching Old Sun's back, Chen Noa sighed. Good people should have good rewards, but Chen Noa would probably skip class again tomorrow. He didn't tell Old Sun. Tomorrow is the visiting time for Orohua. This body is his son's. It's as if I'm handling things for the original Chen Noa. The visit was scheduled a few days ago. Chen Noa arrived at the prison. He showed his ID and student ID. He entered according to the rules. The announcement was made that someone was visiting. Orohua and Chen Noa look very alike. Their features are delicate. At this moment, Aurora, dressed in uniform, had an unmistakable look of exhaustion on her face. She even appeared aged. Chen Noa remembered that she should only be 41. The visit was in a small compartment, separated by a window. When Aurora saw Chen Noa, her eyes instantly reddened. She swallowed hard and called out, "Xiao Noa." She covered her face and started crying. "Xiao Noa, you've refused to see me this whole time. You must hate me, right?" Chen Noa sighed, lifted her eyelids, and said seriously, "Actually, no, I don't hate you. Truly. I didn't come before because I had some things to sort out. I'm over it now." "Really?" Oh, Ruohua seems much calmer. "Yes, really." Chen Noa felt a little awkward. After a moment's thought, he quickly changed the subject. "I brought you cookies and chocolate. Life in prison must be tough, right?" "No. It's not hard, I'm doing well here. Don't worry. How about you? Are you doing okay?" Like all mothers in the world, Ruohua checked Chen Noa's body, and asked about Chen Noa's grades and life. It was mostly her asking, Chen Noa answering. She babbled on for a while. The guard reminded her that it was almost time. Ruohua swallowed hard. "Xiao Noa, mommy will try her best. I'll try to get out as soon as possible. Wait for me. Mommy will make it up to you. I'll take care of you, okay?" "Okay." Chen Noa sighed inwardly and nodded. There was finally a glimmer of light in Ruohua's eyes. When it was time to part, Ruohua suddenly hesitated, looking into Chen Noa's eyes. "Xiao Noa, there's something else I want to ask of you. Mom knows it's not quite appropriate to say this, but I really have no one else to turn to. She's also Mom's child. Although she's not your father's and mine, she's still your little sister." Chen Noa was a little stunned. At this point, Ruohua burst into tears. She's only 5 years old. "I really don't have peace of mind. I constantly have nightmares. If it's convenient for you, could you go see her? If you're not willing to, it's okay. It's all my fault." Although Chen Noa was in a daze, he understood. He actually had a sister. He sighed and nodded seriously. "Okay, Mom. I promise I'll go see her." Suddenly one day, someone tells you that you have an adorable little sister you've never met. Wouldn't you be eager to see her? Listening to Aurora's plea, Chen Noa, though surprised, discovered he actually had a half-sister. He took a breath and nodded solemnly. "Okay, I promise to go see her." After the visit, Chen Noa chatted with Instructor Zhang for a bit, and finally got the whole story straight. Ruohua's youngest daughter was born during her second marriage. The little girl is 5 years old this year. After Ruohua and her husband were imprisoned, the child was entrusted to her husband's younger brother's family. According to the prisoner's request, we asked the Women's Federation in the convict's neighborhood to conduct several home visits. The feedback indicates that the child's basic needs are being met, but we don't know any more specifics. Instructor Zhang was very straightforward, and eventually gave Chen Noa the address of the child's foster family, and the contact information for the Women's Federation staff. If you want to visit in person, you should first contact the Women's Federation on the street. Then, once you've communicated with the other family, you can go. Chen Noa made the call that day. The person on the other end was a staff member from the Women's Federation named Wen. Staff member Lu was very enthusiastic, and after hearing Chen Noa's purpose, immediately said she would contact the other family, and proactively requested to accompany Chen Noa to visit Futuan. The next day at noon, they met at the agreed-upon location. Lu, the staff member, appeared to be under 30. She was dressed very simply, but very warm and enthusiastic. She led Chen Noa to the entrance of Life Home Community. "I've visited the child a few times. Your sister is really so cute. She's very well behaved. I really like this child." Officer Lu is clearly a warm-hearted person. Because of this special situation, the child's parents didn't leave much money for the foster family, so the street office managed to secure some funding. They will allocate 200 yuan per month for the child's nutrition. She turned to Chen Noa and said seriously, "I've been covering this money Every month, the payment is made to the designated account of the foster family on time. Chen Nua's attitude is very polite. Thank you for your trouble. She also feels much more at ease now. After Ruohua and that man were sent to prison, the daughter was taken care of by her younger uncle. The street office also provides a monthly nutrition fee. However, Z should be living better than Chen Nua did after her grandmother passed away. When she reached the entrance of the neighborhood, Chen Nua paused for a moment. I bought a want gift pack at the supermarket. It's a gift for my little sister, whom I haven't met yet. After thinking about it, I also added 2 cartons of Huazi cigarettes and a bottle of Matai. Clerk Lu saw this and was touched. This young man is quite thoughtful. An old community. There's no property management or anything like that. A big iron gate, a reception room. Bicycles parked everywhere. A 6-story building. My destination is on the top floor. I arrived at 602. Brand new Spring Festival couplets are pasted on the door. I knocked on the door and waited a moment before it opened slightly. A middle-aged woman opened the door. She saw Clerk Lu, and immediately put on a smile. Xiao Lu, you're here. Fast forward, fast forward. Chen Nua followed Officer Lu into the house. The floor was wood. The living room even had an air conditioner. In 2001, this would have been considered a comfortably off family. An elderly person was holding a 7 or 8-year-old boy, and watching cartoons in the living room. He didn't see a little girl. This is Uncle Gu and Aunt Fong. The clerk introduced the middle-aged couple. Uncle Gu is the child's real uncle. He then raised his hand to introduce Chen Nua. Chen Nua nodded. This is the younger brother of the man that O Ruohua remarried. That old lady on the sofa in the living room should be O Ruohua's mother-in-law, the child's grandmother. Your name is Chen Nua. The man of the house looked at Chen Nua, without any reaction. Yes, Chen Nua. My name is Chen Nua. The young man nodded quickly. I'm sorry to intrude. I'm sorry to bother you. I also handed over the gifts I brought. I don't have any other business here this time. I mainly wanted to see my younger sister. The husband took the plastic bag and deliberately opened it to look inside. Seeing it was cigarettes and Mao Tai, the couple's attitude clearly changed. From their initial indifference, they became a little more welcoming. Oh, have a seat. I asked Aunt Fong to bring my sister out. This kid likes to hide in her room and play. Chen Nua didn't say anything. He just glanced at the grandmother and granddaughter watching cartoons on the living room sofa. This young man once flew into a rage and slaughtered thousands. But now he found his sister being treated poorly by her adoptive family. Although it's not quite a doghouse, God of War reference, I still can't tolerate this. Sit down. Aunt Fong will bring my sister out soon. Little kids like to hide in their rooms and play. Chen Nua didn't say anything. He just glanced at the grandmother and grandson watching cartoons on the living room sofa. The old woman just held her grandson, and ignored Chen Nua's arrival. A moment later, Chen Nua saw his younger sister. The little girl was led out of the room by the hostess. She was a bit shy, timidly shrinking back, not daring to speak. Even when the hostess pushed the child forward and said, "Call him older brother," the little girl just clutched her slightly dirty teddy bear. She softly called out, "Older brother, okay." Then she stopped speaking. Although Aurora has started to look old in prison, she was very striking in her youth. The little girl takes after her mother and is very pretty. Bright eyes, white teeth, big eyes, and fair skin. The man laughs. She's a little shy and doesn't usually talk much, but we take good care of her. The woman quickly adds, "Yeah, old Gu from our family really dotes on his niece. Look at this sweater. It was bought not long ago, and it wasn't cheap." The little girl secretly raised her head and glanced at her brother. Then she quickly lowered her head and hid behind the little bear. Chen Nua glanced at his porcelain doll-like sister, then noticed the ill-fitting sweater. Sleeves frayed, he remained silent. The hostess tied on her apron and called out, "Lao Gu, make sure Xiao Lu and the others are comfortable. I'm going to the kitchen to prepare the New Year's Eve dinner. Everyone stay for lunch." Chen Nua politely nodded, carefully observing the family. The house was somewhat noisy. The TV was playing Naughty Blue Cat. The woman went into the kitchen to cook. The old man was resting on the sofa with his eyes closed. He held a little boy in his arms. Chen Nua glanced at the balcony. Clothes hung drying on the clothes rack. 4 or 5 pieces scattered about. Chen Nua turned and sat on the sofa, picking up a banana. "Peel it." He gave a slight gesture to the little girl. "Do you want some?" The little girl was clearly attracted. She stared at the banana in Chen Nua's hand, swallowed, then turned her head to look at her uncle. The man awkwardly smiled with a slight sweat. "It's your brother who peeled it for you. Go ahead and eat." The little girl then looked at Chen Nua. She took the banana and took a big bite. Chen Nua smiled slightly. He tore open the want gift bag he brought. He took a rice cracker and teased the little girl. Her craving look was very cute. "Here, have a want rice cracker." The drooling little girl didn't catch it yet. It was suddenly snatched away by a little boy who appeared out of nowhere. "Wan senbei, it's mine. I want to eat it." He didn't forget to make a funny face at Chen Nua. The male host on the side chuckled and said, "Kids are like that, they're used to roughhousing with each other." Chen Nua didn't say anything. After thinking for a moment, he smiled and said, "Yeah, kids at this age are very mischievous. You two still have to take care of them. It's not easy. It sure isn't. As long as the husband isn't embarrassed. It's everyone else who's awkward." At this time, the wife announced that dinner was ready, only, for this meal. Chen Nua didn't mind. He just acted as if he were at home. The female lead is quite dramatic. "Here, Xiaoyi, this is the chicken leg you like." It was at this moment that Chen Nua realized, the little girl's full name is Gu Xiaoyi. A bit of small talk. Xiaoyi was enjoying the chicken leg in her small bowl. It was really delicious. She looked so cute, so lovable. Since Chen Nua sat at the dinner table, I didn't interact much with the little girl. Her eyes were just constantly narrowed. After lunch, we said our goodbyes and left the Gu residence. Your sister is truly pitiful. After lunch, this happened to her parents. Clerk Lu sighed. But thankfully, the child is doing alright now. Don't worry, Chen Nua. Our neighborhood committee and the Women's Federation will definitely follow up on the child's life. We won't let the child suffer any grievances. Chen Nua politely thanked Officer Lu. Then, he saw Officer Lu off, standing at the entrance of the residential complex, his swollen eyes finally opened. Chen Nua's face was a little cold. This young man once put all the countries on high alert with a single sentence. Red alert. If I discover my sister is being mistreated by her adoptive parents, should I reveal myself? Chen Nua's face turned a bit cold. This Officer Lu is enthusiastic, but she's clearly young and inexperienced. I'm afraid she can't discern many things. From Chen Nua's observation, his sister, in this life might not be easy for them. There's laundry hanging on the balcony, but none of it belongs to the little girl. She must have so few clothes that she rarely changes them. The sweater the girl is wearing looks clean, but Chen Nua examined it closely. The fuzzy areas are already worn smooth, and there are quite a few loose threads. But it doesn't look like a little girl's. Kids fighting over snacks doesn't count, and they obviously favor their own son. That's normal. Any family would do that. It's not strange, but when the little girl ate the banana later, she peeled it and looked at her uncle's face before daring to take it. And when she ate the want rice crackers, that craving, something felt off to Chen Nua. At lunch, the child, seeing chicken legs and meat in his bowl, ate very obediently. He finished his bowl completely, not even wasting a drop of sauce. He ate everything. A 5-year-old. How many are this well-behaved at mealtimes? Chasing to feed is one thing. But what about the girl? A few pieces of braised spare ribs. Not a shred of meat left after picking with her teeth. She even sucked the bones completely clean. This suggests she might have gone without food for a while. With a monthly subsidy of over 200 yuan, it sure tastes good and she feels at ease about it. Chen Nua sneered, begging me to come take a look. He took a deep breath and calmed himself. I've taken over his body. I should at least do something in his place. After a moment of thought, Chen Nua turned and went to the door of 602. He knocked on the door. The door opens, and the hostess sees Chen Nua. A look of impatience flashes across her face, but she suppresses it. Oh, Chen Nua. What brings you back? Chen Nua smiles. I can't find my bike key. I thought I might have left it on the sofa. The hostess frowns, reluctantly opening the door. Look for it yourself. I don't think so. I didn't see it when I tidied up the sofa just now. The husband seemed a little surprised, but for the sake of those 2 cartons of cigarettes and 2 bottles of alcohol, he didn't say anything. He gave Chen Nua a brief greeting, and went into his room. The boss continued to sit on the sofa and watch TV. Chen Nua patted the sofa cushions randomly, then he checked his pockets, and said with a smile, my mistake. The keys were in my pocket all along. The hostess's face showed displeasure. She turned and led the little girl towards her room. She clearly didn't want the little girl talking to Chen Nua. Auntie, Chen Nua spoke politely. I want to stay with her for a while. Downstairs, the hostess clearly wasn't happy. Her expression turned cold. Take her out to the yard. But if she catches a cold or gets sick, whose fault is that? I'll be careful. I'll make sure she wears thicker clothes. I won't go far. I'll just take her downstairs for a walk. After all, she's my sister. I'll take her to buy some snacks or something. I think that's unnecessary. The lady of the house has clearly refused. There's no such rule. Besides, Xiao Chen, legally, she is a member of the Gu family. It has nothing to do with you. You, Hui, are an outsider. You just take our child out. If something goes wrong, whose fault is it? With that, the hostess called out. Lao Gu, what do you say? He wants to take the child out. The hostess put her hands on her hips. What are you going to do about it? That definitely won't work. The male lead's expression turned cold. What? Not at ease? Afraid of our ND child, want to ask alone. Fine, fine, fine. Saying this, he shoved the little girl in front of Chenhua. Come on. Talk to your non-blood-related older brother. Have we ND'd you yet? Girl, speak. What grievances or injustices do you have? I'm right here, talk to me. Go ahead. The girl was clearly scared, biting her lip as she looked at Chenhua. She didn't say a word. Nothing, huh? Xiao Chen, you're so young. Why do you have so much dandruff? Find the key. We support your sister, we spoil her. Making enemies now, are we? People, when they're desperate. For my sister's sake, I should take a step back and let it go. Endure it for now and things will calm down. Why should I back down? Without a strong fist, how can I make them talk to me properly? Chenhua ignored the woman's scolding, and just looked at the terrified little girl. I took a deep breath. I turned to the husband and wife. I smiled and said, Uncle, Auntie, you've misunderstood. I don't have any ulterior motives. It's just that I saw my younger sister today, and I thought, as her older brother, I haven't been able to take care of her over the years. I just want to get closer to her. I really don't mean anything else. Sure, I just wanted to get closer to your sister. The house is so big, isn't it enough? Take her out. No way. The man of the house waved his hand dismissively. Fine. Then forget it. Chenhua nodded politely. We'll talk about it later. Sorry for the trouble today. With that, Chenhua turned and left. He had to take a deep breath. Even Chenhua didn't know how to handle this kind of thing. He had lived for decades, in this life and his past one, and had walked through hails of bullets, but he had never dealt with these kinds of domestic squabbles. Standing at the entrance of the residential complex, he took out a cigarette and lit it. Looking at the woman with red, swollen eyes, Chenhua glanced back at the building. He threw the cigarette butt on the ground and stomped it out. Even if I took your life, I should still do something for your family. Chenhua turned and went back upstairs. He stood at the door of the 6th floor. He could hear muffled sobs and cries from inside. Chenhua's gaze turned cold. Before he could knock, the door was opened. The man, holding a bag of trash, was about to go out, when he bumped into Chenhua. He froze for a moment. Through the crack in the door, Chenhua saw a grave in the living room. In an instant, a surge of blood rushed to her head. A 5-year-old girl was standing in the corner, clutching her mouth tightly with both hands. And the woman with the surname Fong. She held a bamboo stick in her right hand, and whipped it against the child's thighs. Don't you dare cry out loud. Cover your mouth. The mistress continued whipping her, and scolded. You good-for-nothing girl. The little girl tightly covered her mouth, her body trembling uncontrollably. It hurt so much. The man's eyes panicked as he pushed Chenhua again. Why are you here again? The woman inside heard the sound and turned around. She looked at the man at the door and Chenhua, holding a stick. She was also stunned. A trace of anger flashed in Chenhua's eyes. Is this how you treat my sister? With that, I kicked the man. The woman dropped the stick. She froze for a second, then charged at me like a madwoman. I shoved her away. I grabbed the man's ankle and dragged him towards the balcony. The old woman on the sofa jumped up excitedly and rushed over to attack me. Let go of my son. Let go of my brother. Chenhua looked down coldly at the old woman, letting her soft fists pound against him. Oh, so you're not dead. When your wife was hitting your granddaughter, you just watched calmly. A 5-year-old child. Are you just going to watch this? The old woman glared at Chenhua with a venomous look. The older one is a troublemaker, and the younger one is too. The older one married my son, had the younger one, and now my son is in prison. Your whole family is a bunch of troublemakers. Oh, got it. Chenhua sneered. So you're disgusting too. Chenhua ignored her. He opened the balcony window, and threw the man out by his legs. He didn't let go. The man dangled outside the window. Don't yell. If you dare to make a sound, I'll let go. The man let out blood-curdling screams. He only played half a note before stopping. Smiling. Don't come any closer, or I'll let go. The old woman seemed to want to move forward. The woman finally snapped out of it. She rushed up and pulled the old woman away. Mom, don't provoke him. Chen. Xiao Chen. You put my husband down. Let's talk things out. Chenhua smiled. Oh, you finally decided to speak properly. When dealing with evil people, you have to be even fiercer. That's the only way they'll listen. This wicked family has met their match in Chenhua. Chen. Xiao Chen. You, put my man down. Let's talk this out, talk it out. The woman stammered. Chenhua smiled. Oh, you're finally speaking properly. Chenhua pulled the man back, and threw him to the ground. Seeing him returned, the patriarch let out a proud roar and pounced on his son. He lifted his head and started ranting, spewing all sorts of obscenities. Seeing the threat was gone, the woman immediately changed her tune. She snapped. You're dead. This is illegal. I'm calling the police right now. Chen Nua didn't speak, just stared at the man with a sneer. The man shuddered. Having some street smarts, he roared. All of you shut the F*** up. Do you want to get me killed? Then he pleaded. Xiao Chen, student Chen, don't get excited. We can talk this through. Let's talk. Now this is interesting. Chen Nua nodded in satisfaction. Then, under the puzzled gaze of the family, he walked into the kitchen. He came out holding a kitchen knife. Seeing the knife, the family was instantly shocked again. The woman screamed in terror. The man, terrified, crawled backward on the floor. He positioned himself in front of his son, trembling uncontrollably. Come on. Kill me. This old woman has lived long enough. Chen Nua let out a snort. He slapped the cleaver down on the table. Don't worry, I won't use the knife. At least not today. Chen Nua stared at the man and said, if you don't want to see blood, come over here and talk. The man was a bit intimidated. His face turned pale, and he dared not move. The woman tried to intimidate him. Chen, aren't you afraid of the consequences? I'm telling you, this is a jailable offense. I'm not afraid. Chen Nua smirked. I didn't hurt anyone today. Even if the police come and take me away, at most, I'll just give you a good talking to. After I get out, guess what? Do you think I'll come find you again? Saying this, Chen Nua pointed at the man. You've got your family to worry about. I have nothing tying me down. After that, I'll grab a knife and come to your house. Uncle Gu, do you think I dare? Do you think you can take that bet? He was about to speak. A reckless, hot-blooded, and shamelessly bold young man persona was clearly on display in front of this family. The woman wanted to say something, but the man glared at her. He whispered angrily, shut up if you don't want to get us killed. The man finally hesitated for a moment. I braced my trembling legs, and shakily stood up. I took a few steps closer. Chen Nua, what? What are you trying to do? You don't have to go this far just to vent your anger. Oui, to your sister. Save your breath, Chen Nua said indifferently. I've seen everything I needed to see. Don't lie to me. Let's just make this simple and end it. I'm taking my sister with me. We are her guardians. He couldn't help but retort. Before he could finish, the man glared fiercely at him. Chen Nua sneered. Right? And what about the child support money the biological parents left you? The couple fell silent. Chen Nua shook his head and continued. I don't want any of it. Not a cent. Keep the child support. You don't have to give it back. From now on, the monthly donations. You'll continue to hold the guardianship. Nominally, you'll still be the guardians. But the child, I'll take her. She'll live with me. The man's eyes darted around. Clearly tempted. He started calculating in his mind. Not having to raise a child would save a lot of expenses. The monthly donations would continue, and he could legitimately pocket the support payments. But Chen Nua didn't give him much time to think. He kicked the man's knee. With a scream, the man fell to his knees. What does it feel like to be so well behaved it makes your heart ache? This time, Chen Nua felt it from his sister. Chen Nua kicked the man directly in the knee. With a scream, the man fell to his knees. Ignoring the man's wailing, Chen Nua said fiercely, don't get me wrong. I'm not negotiating with you. I'm telling you what to do. The young man's expression suddenly changed. Smiling, he continued to the men. Of course, you can try and see what happens if you disagree. I'm alone. I have nothing to lose. There are 4 people in your family. Chen Nua looked around with a wicked smile. Your son is only 7, right? This remark stunned the family. The woman was the first to react. She pointed at Xiao Yizi, who was hiding in the corner. Go. Take him away then. Just don't come knocking again. From now on, we'll keep our distance. Alright, I'll take him away. From now on, we'll keep our distance. Chen Nua smiled. He said this and stopped paying attention to the house. He walked to the corner, looking at the little girl, her mouth agape, clearly terrified. The young man crouched down and gently moved her hand. On her tender fingers, she had bitten teeth marks into her own skin. You might not understand yet, but I'm your older brother. By blood. Same mom. Chen Nua pointed to himself. Get it? The girl nodded. Starting today, do you want to be with me?